Hello everyone, welcome to episode 44 of FPL BlackBox. Today is doing everything it can to stress Mark and I out, but we will not be beaten, will we, Mark? We're here after some technical issues.
Absolutely not, but it looks like it's happened again. Loaz. I don't understand this.
I can see your mouse.
Yeah.
Mouse
no, we're back now. That's okay. We're back.
Are we?
Yeah. It just froze there just briefly again. I think I know what the issue is. It's because I minimised Zoom, and when you minimise Zoom, it freezes Streamlabs.
Oh, never.
So never
Zoom.
Do that again. Yeah. I thought you were going to pretend. I thought you were going to go.
Oh no!
And you didn't pull that one on me.
I've got to save that for April. My little practical jokes that probably stress you out even more.
Yeah.
We're here. Just before we start, a shout out to Rarlan and Beef. It is their birthdays, I believe, from the chat. That's what I've been doing while you've been messing around with all this stuff, Mark.
Digging into the community. Oh, very good. Pressing the flesh. Oh, why not? Why not?
But yeah, we are here. My little hand cursor's still next to my head though. Mark, can you get rid of it?
Yeah, no, I've got rid of that now. Sorry, that's my bad again.
Thank you.
Yeah,
professional outfit. Where I did say in the description and in the chat that this wasn't going to be the polished, amazing episode that we did last week. This one might be a little bit more. What's the word? Disjointed might be a way to describe it. But we're here and we're going to do our best.
Yeah, absolutely. Last week was our most viewed episode ever, and so I want to start by saying thank you to everyone who helped make that such a great episode for us, and then also to apologise in advance because the type of preparation I did for that episode is not going to be mirrored in this episode because I was off work last week, and therefore that gave me time to research that Ronaldo stuff. Whereas things have changed this week quite dramatically. So take us as you find us this week. We'll do our best to do the build up to Game Week 4, which is what we're going to look at. Obviously, last week we looked at our teams. We looked back at Game Week 3. So this is all about throwing forward, really. We're going to look at our teams. We're going to look at the captain situation. There is a bit more on Ronaldo, though. I couldn't not go back to Ronaldo. So there's some interesting data. We referenced last week about how did United adjust to Cavani? Well, I can show you exactly how United adjusted to Cavani. So we're going to talk about that. I'm going to focus on mid-price midfielders because we went out to the community and asked some questions, didn't we? And we got quite a lot on those types of players, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean it was a fairly big thing sort of before the season started with who's going to play Jota, Torres, Greenwood, all these guys, and nothing's really changed. In fact, if anything, there's wildcards being played and people trying to work out who are the best options. So my feelings on Torres have completely gone 180 since last week, and I think yours have as well, right?
Yeah, and it's funny, isn't it? I think I did say that when Foden and KDB were going to be a factor, we'd start to get cold feet about the false nine. I still think, looking at the way the fixtures fall, that Torres will start the next two anyway, because they've got the European tie in between, and I think if anything, KDB and Foden might get some minutes this week, but I don't think they start. And then obviously they're in line for the European tie, and then Torres will probably come in against Southampton. I think the false nine is going to be used in Europe, whether it's used in the Premier League, probably for the bigger games. So Torres could be starting against the weaker teams, which is what you want if you own him. So, but is that enough? Are we willing to back ourselves against Pep again? Look what happened to me.
I know. I was talking to Gianni about this earlier, and like he was saying the same thing. He was like, "Oh, I think it might be like fairly easy to predict, like when Torres is going to start.
No.
He might start against the easier sides." And I was like, "It's never easy." And I was like, "This is the problem. You get locked into these things. Like Torres misses out, and then you think, oh, he's definitely going to play the next one." Because he's just missed out against Leicester, so he's definitely going to play against Southampton, and then Pep does Pep things, and then you hate yourself. So.
Well, the Mahrez should be a lesson to us all, right? I went them both, didn't I? And Mahrez playing at Spurs, but then getting ousted out the team for the next two, without any rhyme or reason, when he played all of pre-season and looked their best player. As I said, I engaged with Pep early on, and he beat me well and truly, and I'm not in a hurry to go back there. But we'll see. If Torres bangs again this weekend, I might change my mind. Yeah. We'll have to see. So, yes, this has been quite a turbulent international break, it's fair to say, isn't it? We've had a lot to deal with, and I want to touch on that by just going over some of the issues that have come up over this break. And these are some of the tweets that would have piqued our interest and that of the community during the last 14 days, or 12 days as it is so far.
That second one.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. I've got my own views on that.
I wonder what they are, Mark. I wonder if you're going to be a bit biased.
We're not biased. I'm just going to talk a bit of sense, I think, really. But we'll get to that one in a minute. Calvert-Lewin, first of all, what's your take on this? Because he's had a toe injury, isn't he? Since the start of the season, we've been led to believe. And he's been injected to get out on the pitch. Hasn't stopped him returning 3-3. Okay, 2 penalties. Yeah, but even so. Now he's got a muscle injury as well. And so he withdrew after getting that muscle injury against Brighton. What are you thinking about him now? Because that is the popular transfer, isn't it? Ings to Calvert-Lewin ahead of game week 4 was the one that I looked at and thought a lot of the community are going to go that way. Ings is probably going to make way now for a different kind of player, maybe. But what's your take on the Calvert-Lewin situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think Calvert-Lewin kind of forms part of the strongest front three if everyone's fit, for me going forward anyway. I think Calvert-Lewin, Antonio and Ronaldo would be the three that I'd look to get. I think Lukaku's obviously going to be the major factor at Game Week 7, but I think the other three I'd put slightly ahead of him until now. But yeah, I mean, if he hadn't gone off, if this was just like a, one of the standard like international break injuries that we get, I think there wasn't anything in it. But the fact he did actually go off against Brighton, it does indicate there is some kind of problem there. I mean, he was a bit superhuman going into the start of the season when, he hadn't had any minutes pre-season and then started the first game. So he clearly is someone. Yeah. He is someone who can, I don't know, maybe get over things quite quickly. Because I mean, I can't think of many other players that would be able to get no fitness at all. It's not like he played during the Euros or anything. He hadn't played a game for ages. So I don't think it's going to take him long to get up to speed when he does get over them. The question is, has he got over it? And I think he probably has, but that's not based on anything other than he started when we didn't think he would, and I'm hoping he'll be back. The
thing is, him withdrawing from the England squad was quite a big thing because he was kind of, Bamford got the start, didn't he? Right, and odds on Calvert-Lewin would have got that. So it must have been a big decision for him, which kind of insinuates to me that the injury is perhaps maybe a bit more than we think. Obviously, with all these things, we've got to wait until Thursday, Friday, right? So the next 2 days are going to be crucial. But I do think there could be something in this muscle injury in particular. And it's interesting what you said. It didn't register with me, of course, first of all. He didn't have a pre-season. And so we were surprised when he turned up week 1, didn't we?
Yeah.
So that could be a factor.
And I mean, there could be an element of that. Like they want to keep him behind and work on his fitness and stuff. And yeah, I don't know. I just think this has got all the hallmarks of someone who's going to start the next game. But it's hard to know without seeing and hearing. We'll probably know from the press conference, I imagine.
I reckon there's more in it. I think he could be
interesting.
Yeah, I do because I just think they could have used a toe injury for a start as a reason to withdraw him, and they didn't. Like I said, he's a player who's just broken into the England setup, and he probably would have fancied getting a start. So it's not a decision he arrived at lightly. So I think it's a bit more than a precaution, but we'll have to see. The next one, Lukaku. Obviously, it was post the score in the 3-0 win for Belgium. He got a goal and an assist, I believe. He went off after 81 minutes, and Belgium were 3-0 up after 65 minutes, so it's not like he was taken off immediately, that the game was in the bag. And of course, he did play for Belgium, so Chelsea released him. So his comment was, I'm struggling with a minor issue. I've been struggling with a minor issue for a while. And he's gone to have a scan on it before returning to Chelsea because he's suspended for Belgium's game, the final qualifier. What do you make of that one?
I mean, it's from an FPL point of view, it's a funny one for him to say that and throw absolute chaos into the midst. I mean, he's been playing with a minor issue. It's similar to Calvert-Lewin. I mean, he's been playing with an injury to his toe. And so Lukaku's obviously had something as well, but not enough for him not to play. He started at the first opportunity against Arsenal, pretty much. So I'm guessing as long as the scan doesn't reveal something, sinister going on that, maybe no one was aware of, then he'll start and be fine.
Yeah, that's how I see it as well. I mean, I think you've got to look at the fact that he played 90 at Arsenal, and he played the whole game. And against Liverpool, it was Havertz who came off at half-time. And you'd say, well, of course it was, because Lukaku's more of a threat on the break, so they wouldn't want to take him off. But if it was an issue which, was a risk to his minutes, I would have thought we'd have seen something from Chelsea. I think at least they would have let him go to Belgium to play, because knowing he'd play all 3 games. It's only because he's suspended it, he's not going to do that. So I don't think there's too much in it, but you're right. It's all about the scan, isn't it? It's all about the
But
scan.
I will say, if you're going to rest him at any point off the back of, with a minor injury, it's going to be Aston Villa at home, because then they've got Spurs and City in the league. They've got Champions League kicking off as well.
Yeah, but it's home debut. Home debut he hasn't played in front of his own fans yet. Are you going to deny him a home debut?
Well, yeah, if he's got a minor injury, you do.
I don't think they drop points at Liverpool. I don't think you can't afford to take risks. They've got to win games. They know they're in a league where you've more or less got to win every game with City and Liverpool, the pace that they're going to set, I would have said. I know City have dropped points already, but I don't think Chelsea will risk not starting him.
I think
it's
he
too
starts.
early. Yeah.
I think he starts. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, if that scan comes back and there is anything there, then it could be the one that they decided to give a miss for. But I don't think they will. I think he'll play.
Good comments actually in chat. Chelsea have got quite a few players returning late. Yeah, they have, and so Lukaku is actually going to be one of the more rested of their players. So I don't think there's any doubt he plays.
I heard he's got his leg in a cast and he's not going to...
Is that what you're saying? Well, to be honest, the week we've had as FPL managers, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a curveball coming on that still. But hopefully we'll see pictures of him in training and it'll be confirmed by Tuchel Thursday or Friday. I imagine Friday. Son, another one, injured, calf injury. What about this one?
This is the main one for me, I think. I think there is something in this. For I mean, this is a strange one, right? This is like a training ground sort of... The ones that happen in matches kind of, often they're kind of quite precautionary, I think. And I don't know, you feel something, you think, oh God, I don't want to make this any worse. But a training injury that's enough to, basically send you home, I think is a massive concern for him. I think he misses out. Out of the three, he'd be the one that I'd put money on missing out.
Yeah, I think the nature of the calf injuries tend to be difficult ones. In my small experience of football injuries, having tracked them over the years with Scout, I think calf injuries can be quite problematic. They're not things you overcome, and they can hamper you even if they're minor. So I think, yeah, I agree with you. I think
was it a hamstring he had last year when he just played, like when everyone thought he was going to be out for ages, then he just played the next game and got like 20 points against Man U?
Well, he had a hamstring. He had a hamstring scare this season, didn't he? Going into game week 3, he had a hamstring scare and played. I don't know if he's had a history of calf injuries, but I just know that calf injuries are problematic, not easy to shake off. So if it's enough to keep him out of that next qualifier, I think there's something in this. And I agree. Of the three, I would say that Son is probably the biggest doubt. But
and I mean, like Calvert-Lewin missing out, for example, doesn't really affect England that much because obviously he's not going to play anyway. We've got Kane, Bamford, all this stuff. Son missing out in the qualifiers though is massive. So he's not going to be sent home unless they're, if they can patch him up and get him on the pitch, they probably would. So yeah, I think he's a worry.
Has he been sent home, or is he still with them? I didn't think he'd been sent home. That's minor detail, but I'm not sure he's back at Spurs yet. People saying Mark doesn't have Son. Quite right, I don't. But he's a player I nearly had. He's in my turning point team, so I'm going to have to manage him out of that. I think if I think it's doubt. I don't know. I mean, for many, I think that would probably be enough to. Many things have triggered a wild card. Obviously, Ronaldo, Lukaku, and then these injuries, and then added to that, we've got the doubts over the Brazilian players, which is just an absolute roller coaster. What's going on with that? What's the latest? I think today, so the tweet I've captured here was yesterday's news. And then today it's been confirmed that Brazil have asked FIFA to invoke the ban, right? So we know there's going to be a series of players, including Firmino, Alisson, and of course Rafinha, who's probably the one that affects FPL managers the most, who are likely to miss out now, unless the Premier League can do anything to negotiate. I don't know still don't know the situation there.
No, I just Son has been sent home, by the way.
Oh, yeah,
so
okay.
yeah, just confirmed that. I looked at the Athletic. I mean, but did you know not Richarlison? Richarlison's okay. They're not gonna. Apparently, due to good relations with him, they're not gonna do anything with him. So it's just everyone else, which is strange in a way. I think that kind of thing makes a bit of a mockery of the whole thing. Like you either enforce a blanket approach and ban to everything. You can't pick and choose. Oh, we like him, so he won't be it, and we'll get this guy, but we won't get this guy. It's just getting a bit ridiculous. So, I mean, it's nuts. I mean, Rafinha, Fabinho, Firmino, Rafinha, Firmino, Alisson, Edison, Jesus, Silva, and Fred are all likely to miss 5 days. Which,
well,
for anyone in Champions
how
League,
likely though? They haven't been flagged yet, and there's a lot of talk about, well, it can't be enforced. The Premier League will get them out of it. So the message at the moment is don't act on this news yet, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, you've got to wait until nearer the deadline until we've got the full news. But I think they're going to be out.
Do you? You're of that mind?
I think so. Like, this was something that I think everyone was kind of made aware of before it happened, and then the players haven't gone. And I think it's, I don't know, like unless the FA can do something, but they're going to be under a hell of a lot of pressure to enforce this if FIFA are pushing for it. So I think they miss out. There's too much smoke without a fire here. Well, Rafinha being out would be a big blow for people who've got him.
Yeah, and quite interestingly, my transfers in that Turning Point tool team, which by the way is a tool which allows you to branch your team. My 2 transfers last week that I made in that team were Rafinha and Son in, and both of them could miss out in game week 4 bizarrely. So it just shows you how the best laid plans can just be interrupted and devastated during this international break. And it's been a break where a lot of people have played their wildcards, right? And tonight we are going to touch on 2 wildcards, which is a bit of a surprise to you. But yes, people have guessed. I was clickbaiting before on Twitter. Both the apprentices, both Henry and Natalie, have pressed a button on their wildcards.
Oh, it's not us.
No, it's not us. I might as well.
Bit of clickbait there, bit of clickbait. Love it.
But I do think it's unfortunate. I mean, I guess it's pros and cons, really. If you'd have played your wildcard and you've come across all this injury news and this disruption with the Brazilians, would you be regretting playing it now?
Yeah, I think so. I think it very much depends on the next couple of days whether it was the right time to play it. Because if we don't really get a clear thing from Solskjaer about Ronaldo starting, and if Lukaku is still going into this with a doubt, and we've still got question marks over Rafinha and stuff, these are going to be players who you have to avoid getting. And then you don't have a wild card to be able to bring him in easy afterwards. So I think if we go into Saturday with these things still doubts, I think you're going to be kicking yourself if you've played the wild card. If we get a much clearer image, if we get like, Calvert-Lewin's fine, he's been resting, and Lukaku's, there's no issue there, and Ronaldo's going to start, it's a home game, of course he's going to play, then you've done well, I think. So the next 2 days, press conferences are probably some of the most crucial ones I can remember in a long time.
So let's talk about Ronaldo's start then, because there was some scaremongering yesterday by Sky and another, exactly, saying that there's a chance that he quarantine and so on would keep him out, but surely there's nothing in it. We saw pictures of him yesterday training, didn't we? So
well, he was at Carrington yesterday, so on Tuesday, and today, Wednesday, he's been in full training.
Yeah.
So he's going to have 3 days of full training with the squad.
Yeah.
And they're not going to play him against young boys in the Champions League. They don't need to. So why wouldn't he starts?
I guess the only thing is that is he ready to be thrown in from the start? Like probably not. Well, he's probably not, is he? I mean, let's face it. I mean, if Ollie was looking, if this was any other player, I think he would ease him in. I think he would bring him off the bench. But
can I just clarify that this is a joke before I say it?
Go on. What are you going to say?
Ronaldo.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Yeah, you got a lot of stick for saying that, and people just presumed you were playing.
I said it as a joke.
The straight man last week. No, but I mean, if any other player, I don't think he'd start. But because it's a home game, the excitement, he's obviously merchandise is flying out because of Ronaldo's return to the club.
Most ever shirt sales on a single day, right. I believe.
Yeah. So the pressure to play him is great, and so I don't see him not starting. Whether he should start. Probably not. Probably, when you think about it, he's only been with the club, training with the club since Wednesday, and it's a high-paced Premier League game, and they've got other players who are much closer to being knitted in with the team in Martial, Greenwood, etc. But someone's going to have to drop out and make way because it is Ronaldo, right? And presumably he's going to play out front, and Greenwood's going to move out wide, and Martial will get dropped, right? That's what we think.
I think he gets 60, 70 minutes. Yeah, that's my prediction.
Well, do you reckon he could be taken off just for to get the applause? Yeah, this is it, isn't it? I mean, it's quite interesting to assess how many at 36 you wouldn't think he'd be an ever present, And you would think that Champions League would be their priority to play him in those matches. But because it is Ronaldo, you see him starting every game, very rarely getting subbed off before 80 minutes and starting the Champions League games as well, don't you? It's going to be a real test, though, of Ollie, because only this week Lingard has turned down a contract. And part of the, obviously behind that is he doesn't know how many minutes he's going to get for United. If they don't get cut runs, then Ollie's going to have some really difficult decisions to make, isn't he?
I mean, I can't understand why he didn't move. Like, he must have known this was, he must have known he wasn't going to get many minutes. Surely he must have had some offers after playing for West Ham, like he did. He's turned those down. So, it'd be interesting to know where he does go. Because I kind of thought when he didn't move, I thought, oh, he's happy to be a kind of a squad player at United. And then, like a week or two later, he's then like, oh no, I'm not happy to be a squad player. So, oh, that's a bit of mixed messaging. I mean, just go back to United quickly. I mean, the Champions League group isn't easy. I mean, the Young Boys is the easiest one, which they can obviously rest a few players in. But with Villarreal beat them in the Europa League last year, and Atalanta, who are like a fantastic attacking side, they're going to need to score goals against them. So you've got to think Ronaldo's going to be starting in the Champions League. So he's going to be a 36-year-old playing every game. I just don't see Solskjaer having the ball to
and that's it really.
Game.
That's it. I mean, if we see him start this one and we see him go back-to-back games Champions League when it gets tougher for him after the Young Boys, then we'll get an idea. But I just wonder how he's going to... I mean, we haven't even talked about Cavani. We're going to talk about him in a bit. But, he's a factor as well. Let's not forget. And when's he going to play? I mean, is Lingard and Cavani and Martial, they're just going to be settling for Carabao Cup?
He's going to have to. I mean, he does love Martial. I do wonder if we might see him, but he sees Martial as a striker. I don't think he's going to play him on the left, especially not when Rashford's back. Well, I think they're all just on the way out. I think Cavani's around just to be a good influence now. I think he must accept that. I mean, he's just when you have to give away your shirt number as well, it must be the most it must be pretty demoralising.
Yeah, of course. It's not.
You can have my shirt number, Ronaldo.
It's not been great for him, but you got to think that he's a quality player, and he's going to demand some pitch time, and they need cut runs for Ollie to have a means to play these players. If they don't get a cut run, I think it's going to be some really interesting choices they have to make. It's going to be fascinating. Ronaldo coming back is fascinating for so many reasons, and the test of Ollie's management and how strong he'll be managing him is just one aspect of that, I think. While we're talking about Cavani, let's have a look at this stuff, because when we did the Ronaldo show last week, I think you raised the point about, well, what about Cavani? They did okay feeding him. And so we went away and we had a look at exactly that. We looked at when Cavani started for United and how they provided him with service. And what I found was just shocking. It was just crazy. I just didn't expect what I saw. So he started 13 games last season, and they're on the screen here. Started game week 11, running through to game week 37. A good mix of home and away games. He scored 5 goals in that spell, in that 13 start spell. He scored more goals off the bench, of course, but in the starts he scored 5 goals. And interestingly, in those 13 starts, United put in an average of 17.6 open play crosses per game. And yet, when Cavani wasn't in the team, they only averaged 8.3 open play crosses per game. So while last week we were saying, well, are United going to adapt to Ronaldo? They've got to get more crosses into the box to actually feed him, for him to be able to rival his returns at Juventus. Because Juventus, if you remember, if you didn't watch the show, were the number 1 team in the Serie A for crosses. This shows, doesn't it, that United can and will adapt, right? That's what I take from it.
Well, you're not going to cross the ball to Martial. You're not going to get much joy out of that.
Or
but
Greenwood, maybe as well.
Or Greenwood, like they're just not that kind of player. So I think it is interesting, because I've always regarded Solskjaer, and I think a lot of people have, as being like building quite a one-dimensional team. And I think Cavani came in, and the idea was that he would shake that up a little bit and give them a bit more of a presence up front and bully defenders a bit more and stuff, which you don't really see from some of the other ones, where it's just all about pace, get the ball into the box, win some penalties, let Fernandes score them. Like that's the kind of thing. But I think this just shows that actually they do have different strings to their bow, and yeah, I think Ronaldo's going to play that role. And I think we're going to see something much more like this going forward. And like we talked about all of this last week, but I mean, Shaw is going to be relied on so much, I think,
Yeah.
to be putting these crosses in.
Yeah, I think the bulk of the crosses over this period when Cavani started were supplied by Bruno and Shaw. So I think while Bruno's value to us has decreased in terms of, well, maybe he's not going to have as many shots, he's probably not going to be on penalties, we would expect him to be key to providing assists via those crosses from open play, and Shaw as well. I think, I mean, at Juventus we saw the fullbacks, wing-backs being key to providing him service, and I think it'll happen the same for United. Maybe not Wan-Bissaka, but
no, unless he's having a lot of coaching.
Certainly Shaw. One thing for a word of caution, though, only 19 shots in those 13 starts for Cavani. So although they did provide him plenty of crosses, and they clearly changed tact, and they clearly said, right, Cavani's in the team, we've got to get him crosses, he only got 19 shots out of it. So the quality, they've 3.8 successful crosses per game on average compared to 1.2 without him. So clearly they upped the volume. It meant they had more success with their crosses as well. But he didn't have that many chances. Only in one game did he have more than 2 chances. So you'd expect those numbers to increase for Ronaldo, right? We can probably double them because he's going to take pot shots, right? But in terms of quality chances, this is going to be another interesting thing to study. How does Ronaldo compare to Cavani? Because I think he's going to get similar service. Will he, just by the nature of him being, is he better in the air? I guess arguably he is. Arguably he's the best striker in the world in the air.
He's definitely better than Cavani in the air.
But Cavani's good in the air, right? He's not slack in that respect, and he's a good header of a ball. But Ronaldo is probably peerless in that respect. So you'd expect him to make more successful, convert more crosses into successful ones, right? And have more chances.
But like you mentioned last week, a majority of Ronaldo's goals went with his head.
6 he got, I think.
Yeah, so the majority were still with his feet. So yeah, I mean that's the thing. You just crosses don't always lead to goals from headers. So it's not like he's going to jump. It just if the ball doesn't get to him though, he's not gonna have as many shots. Like it all comes down to the quality of those crosses at the end of the day. So Ronaldo, you'd argue would be better at finding the space and things, and this is what you talked about, how quickly are United going to be able to adapt to finding him and finding Ronaldo making those runs? Because Ronaldo can make all the best runs in the world, which he will do, but if he's not being found by the crosses coming in, and he won't be by Wan-Bissaka, so he might be by Shaw and Fernandes and Pogba and guys. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting as well with Fred being missing, or potentially being missing as well. I mean, who the hell plays centre mid next to Pogba now? Are they gonna push Fernandes back? I mean, a midfield of Fernandes and Pogba seems pretty.
Van der Beek maybe comes in and Bruno drops back.
But I mean, again, a midfield of Pogba and Van der Beek are so similar in terms of like the way they want to play, like what 6s or 8s maybe. But yeah, it'd be interesting. I just think that it could unbalance United a bit more, and that might affect the quality of chances Ronaldo gets. I'm not saying that I don't think Ronaldo's going to do well if he starts. Yeah. Again, this is a caveat, but again, this isn't a full strength. Oh God, saying Fred is part of a full strength United side
does Fred weaken? They got Matic, haven't they? He can come in. So
yeah, I guess Matic comes in.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that Ronaldo played in a 2 at Juventus, and he'll be the sole lone central striker in this United team. We imagine, unless they change formation radically, it's going to be 2 wider players, either Greenwood or Sancho or Rashford and Sancho. 2 of those 3. So that would be interesting as well to see if that changes things, because he was in a front 2 at Juventus.
Yeah.
And against Newcastle, you've got to think they're going to turn up probably knowing Bruce with a back 5 most of the time. So they're going to put 3 big centre-backs in there expecting crosses. So while this on paper looks like an easy test for Ronaldo, a nice, handy, easy debut, I don't know. It's going to be so interesting to see how it turns out, because I don't think United could just throw crosses in and Ronaldo's going to win them all, because Newcastle will be ready for that. And it's not so much his runs, it's more his movement, isn't it? I don't think he's going to be running the channels or running over the top. It's going to be, can Newcastle concentrate and keep him picked up at all times? And that's a big if when you look at their record, don't you?
For Newcastle's, I mean, they're bottom, aren't they, of like most of the metrics for keeping shots out and things. I mean, if this was 3 or 4 weeks down the line, it would just be absolute, bloodbath, I think. I think the only reason that people can maybe think they can get away with it is just because it is this first week and he's only had 3 days of training. But it is, I mean, I'm 50-50, you're not going with him. if he's in that starting lineup against Newcastle, even with 60 minutes, it's not going to be fun not owning him.
Oh, it's never. I mean, no, it's never going to be fun not owning because he's going to have a lot of shots, right? We know that. What are the quality of those efforts going to be?
Do you know his ownership now?
Let me have a guess. 15%? 15?
Higher, a little bit.
Higher. 18.
Yeah, 17.4.
Yeah, not
currently.
far off.
He'll hit 20% easy before deadline.
It's crazy, isn't it, as well? And when we look at the captains later, he's kind of like a shoe-in for the captain for so many people, and yet he hasn't kicked a ball in the Premier League.
I know.
How many years?
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. Right, let's talk about Romelu Lukaku versus Ronaldo, just to balance it up. Because if anything, this data is pro-Ronaldo, right? So let me reveal my bias a bit more by looking at something completely different. This is our friend Tim Bayer, who, if you don't know, he's on Twitter. He does a lot of infographics, really, really smart stuff. At Tim Bayer 93. Follow him if you can, because he does some really good visuals, as I said. We've used a few of them in the show before. This is something you put up a couple of weeks ago, looking at non-penalty XG for Chelsea, and making a case that actually, since Tuchel arrived, he's got them moving towards City as title contenders, not only in defence, but in attack as well. So their non-penalty XG since Tuchel came in, 1.8, compared to United's 1.3 in the same spell, just for podcast users who can't see the graphic.
Yep.
So that's interesting, isn't it? Because, again, we always associate Tuchel coming in with, he's firmed them up at the back, but actually Chelsea don't offer too much up front. But when we looked at the season data at the end, I think Chelsea were third, and that really surprised us. And this kind of underlines it as well, that United are, kind of a bit behind them in terms of non-penalty XG. So do you think that has any bearing on the Lukaku versus Ronaldo argument? Or do you think Ronaldo's going to make a massive difference to this?
I think you can kind of forget, and managers can kind of build a reputation really quickly, and then you just have that locked into your mind. So it's like United. You think Solskjaer came in, there was an upturn in their attacking. So you think, he's a really attacking manager, and they're going to create loads of chances. But then you look at that dip that they had when Tuchel was there. So was it around about Gameweek 26 or 27? I mean, they really, really did dip down quite a lot, but then steadily have increased it as his kind of tactics and strategies have come more into play. So yeah, I mean the data suggests that Lukaku probably is going to get more chances than Ronaldo, I guess. But I think Ronaldo is going to make himself more chances because he's a player who likes to shoot, and he won't be bringing players into the match like Lukaku will be. So I think it kind of balances out, but it is interesting.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. It was close in Serie A, right? I think Ronaldo got 29 goals, Lukaku 24, but Lukaku had the 11 assists. So goal involvement, it was 35-32. I think we're going to see something similar in the Premier League. I think Ronaldo overall will probably have more goal involvement. But Ronaldo, just through sheer shot volume, will keep pace with him, if not beat him for goals. I don't know.
I think there's question marks around, will Lukaku dominate the FPL returns to the same extent that Ronaldo probably will? So,
for Chelsea?
Yeah, I'm looking at Chelsea. I'm thinking, Lukaku's there, and I think he actually makes Havertz and Mount better options because they should do better. But then I look at United, and I think actually Ronaldo makes Greenwood and Fernandes worse options. Yeah, which I think is the difference between the two players. And it'll be really interesting to know, when we do an analysis in sort of 5 or 6 weeks to see, is Greenwood taking less shots? Is he getting involved less in the box? Are they all just set up just to create chances for Ronaldo, which I'm not sure they are really doing with Chelsea? They're just more of a unit, and I think ultimately that's going to be better for Chelsea this season. Yeah,
and of course what we saw against Arsenal was when Lukaku had the 8 shots, but Tuchel said afterwards we haven't really had any time with him to work him into the fabric of the team, right? And so what that might mean is actually he takes fewer shots and brings in others more often, and it's them who have more shots. So I think you're spot on in that. I think what we might see with Ronaldo is it does impact Bruno, Greenwood, Rashford in terms of their output, but at Chelsea, the players around Lukaku will all benefit from being around him. That includes Werner as well, I think, if he gets back in the team.
I think it is interesting. We do have this sense of Ronaldo, he's going to just be the sole man. He's not going to track back and stuff. But I've never had that sense with him. I think, he's getting on a bit. But if United are 1-0 down against Newcastle, I think Ronaldo's going to be everywhere. He's going to be the one dropping deep. Yeah, I think so. He's going to be the one dropping deep and trying to urge teammates on and stuff. That's what he's always done for all the clubs that he's been to. He's not going to just stand up front and just wait for the ball.
He'll demand the ball, yeah. So he'll
drop and demand.
Yeah, he'll come to the ball. I don't see him pressing to preserve leads and that kind of thing. He's not going to be. I don't think he's going to be that type of player. If things aren't going his way, if he's not getting enough of the ball, or if United are losing, he'll try and take the game.
He's not going to hound down players on the left and do an amazing tackle and then run back up. He is going to drop back to try and see more of it. And that's when United's style could change even more, because then if he's dropping deep, they won't need to put in the crosses for him.
I can't remember though a player that's caused so much speculation. Yeah, because of that massive gap and what he produced and what we saw the first time, and no one can really know what we're going to expect. We've seen evidence of stuff at Madrid and Juventus, but he's going into a completely different team in a completely different league, and we know the Premier League operates at a different pace to Serie A, certainly. So we don't know. And we've spent all last week speculating. We're speculating now. There's people in comments speculating. There's people on Twitter speculating. We don't know. It's going to take probably 3 or 4 weeks of data, and then we can start looking at the way it's trending. But what I do know is people are wildcarding now to get him in on the basis that he's almost guaranteeing them a return. And I don't know. I don't feel as confident as some, obviously. I'm more confident in Lukaku, as people know. But I find it fascinating that this player has arrived and done this, and it really does link to one of the questions that we got from the community this week from Faizan Khan, who said, the template at the start of the season was formulated for the 6 game week period, and changes were expected into Chelsea's run from game week 7. But Romelu Lukaku and Ronaldo have kind of disrupted that strategy now, and I think that is absolutely spot on. We could never have foreseen this when we planned our teams ahead of game week 1, and I certainly didn't. I looked at game week 4 as a key game week, and it's going to be that for all the different reasons, isn't it?
Can I just remind you?
Yeah,
of you and Luke
go on,
telling
then.
me, you and Luke, pre-season saying to me, oh, we want to be making moves because where else are we going to be making moves? If we set our teams up for too long, then blah, 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 blah. And then you were like, oh, Fernandes for game week 4 and all this, and now we're thinking of selling him. Things can just move so quickly, and especially around the start of the season. And yeah, you've got to be able to adapt, and it's why I'm a little bit worried. Like, I'm looking at my team and thinking, okay, I'm not too happy with the way my team is. I think I've got some issues. And I'm looking at some of the wildcard teams, presuming everyone's fit, and thinking, okay, these guys have caught some price rise, and they're looking a lot stronger. And I am a bit worried that I'm going to kind of get left behind unless I do something. Like I chop and change some players in and out. So I'm thinking about hits this week, and hits plural. I'm thinking about a -8.
-8.
Yeah.
Is a -8 not enough to trigger the wildcard then for you?
I think a -12 is. The idea would be to do a -8 and then not wildcard in game week 7.
Yeah.
And then bring it back for United's fixture swing a bit later on. So
yeah,
it's not something ideally I want to do, but it would sort out. I think a -8 would sort out all the things I want and get me like ahead again, and still leave me the wildcard. Depends how much value you have in the wildcard, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's many FPL managers out there who haven't, in this 2-week period, not questioned the wildcard. I mean, even myself, who got Lukaku in to deliberately try and put off the wildcard even ahead of game week 7, has had to check and gone, am I absolutely sure? Because of what's happened. It's been extraordinary. And I guess in a way, the injury doubts have put me off as well. So they've, in a way, perhaps saved me from thinking about it too seriously. Is that the case for you as well? As these injuries come rolling in, has that cast more doubt about playing it?
Yeah, I mean, I never really wanted to play it anyway. It does still feel very, very early, and I think a lot of players who maybe we haven't seen a huge amount of could come into the reckoning at some point. And I don't feel like my squad is a million miles off being good, and that's why I think the 3 transfers would sort it out. So it hasn't really been a consideration for me. I mean, normally I find that with the wildcard, you play it start of an international break like this, or you don't, right?
Yeah.
If you're trying to catch those price rises as best you can. So if you had Barnes, for example, and you played it and you got Torres, I think you probably made 0.3 on that over this break.
Yeah, the swing, yeah.
Yeah, so the swings can be massive. But then, like, saying that, last year I played mine about we did the Friday night stream, didn't I? I played the wild card that day, right at the end of the week. So yeah, it can happen. But yeah, I haven't really considered it. To be fair,
right? Okay, and you're definitely not going to do it now, because I listened to Green Arrow last night, and Adam was still umming and ahhing, I think, and I think there's a lot of us in that camp. And maybe all it will take is one more key injury to a very popular asset, and it'll push more over the edge.
I think like it would be different if Ronaldo had like 5 of the best fixtures in a row coming up, or the same with Lukaku. But I kind of feel like both with Ronaldo and Lukaku, if you make it through this week without getting punished severely, you've got Salah captain for some absolutely brilliant fixtures, and you've got a bit of time to reassess and just see how they're getting on and things like that. But obviously, it can go completely wrong if they both get hat-tricks and then you haven't got either of them.
Yeah, and the other thing is a lot of, as we've said so many times, a lot of the community, including ourselves, have started reasonably well, right? We've not had great game weeks, but we're within the top million, which at this stage is good, right? It's a decent place to be. So I guess that's probably put some people off as well. I just find it fascinating that for me as a manager who relies so much on data and the eye test, going all in for a player like Ronaldo without actually seeing him play in the Premier League or getting any data to compare to his previous data just sounds crazy. But I know what you're going to say.
I'm not going to say it.
It is Ronaldo, but it is crazy, isn't it? That that many, he's got 17% ownership without actually kicking the ball in the Premier League and without actually your data. And that's just, I mean, a lot of that is perhaps more Man United fans reacting to it as well, and we know there's a lot of those who play it, but there are seasoned FPL managers who have done it as well, right?
Do you think we'd be seeing this flurry of wildcards if Lukaku had Spurs away and United had Leicester away, for example? Like it's fallen on a week where they have the best fixtures, but then they're not as good. Like Lukaku's in particular really drop, and United's aren't that great. Like with West Ham away, and I think they've got Leicester as well. Because you're still going to have both of them going into the other games if you go for all 3. But yeah, I just find it interesting. I think that those 2 fixtures have kind of blinded people a little bit.
I don't think it's got anything to do with the fixtures. I think it's Ronaldo's Ronaldo, and even if they were playing Man City, I think he'd have had that ownership. Yeah, I do.
Because the Ronaldo captain and Lukaku captain this week is arguably stronger than Salah away. Salah at Leeds. But like next week, for example, it's going to be hard to go without Salah because they've got who they've got. They've got is it Brentford they've got next week?
Yeah.
No, sorry, it's Palace at home. So it's Palace at home. Ronaldo's going to have West Ham away, who are quite leaky, and then Chelsea go into Spurs away. So to me, Salah's the best option there.
Yeah. Oh no, definitely. But I don't know. I think the buzz around Ronaldo. I mean, you're not playing your wild card over Ronaldo, but you are going to take a hit and take out Bruno Fernandes. And when you stop and think about that, Bruno Fernandes, top 2 FPL assets, we're just presuming, we're just making assumptions that he's going to dip as a result of Ronaldo coming in. So the assumptions are, without even seeing this, that Bruno's going to dip in terms of output, Ronaldo's going to come in and be worth 12.5, and I'm so confident in that I'm going to take a 4 or even 8 point hit to back it. It's crazy, isn't it?
Oh, it is crazy. Yeah, I mean, again, I was talking about this with Gianni. It's like whenever you take a hit, you're rolling the dice, obviously, on the players you take out, scoring less than the ones you bring in. But also, if you're changing the captaincy as well, you're also rolling the dice on Salah with a good fixture away at Leeds. Not outscoring the player that you bring in. So you're adding quite a lot more kind of uncertainty to things. Because imagine you take the -4, Fernandes outscores Ronaldo, and Salah outscores Ronaldo as well. You could be like 20 points down on the move that you've made when you might be impatient. Obviously, it's easy to say it can go both ways. I mean, the reason the 4 point hit though, the reason I quite like it is because with Ings and Tony, with their fixtures now toughening up, getting Ronaldo in gets rid of that problem.
Yeah.
And then I can move Fernandes down to someone like Jota, who I think has got potential with the fixtures. The thing is with SuperChats as well, I'd have to get rid of him to get in Jota, which would be the -8. But I'm not really too worried about that. People were, I've seen some people saying, oh, SuperChats has to be classed as a mistake now because it's blocking people from getting Jota. But it's like, even if you take a 4 point hit to get him out, you've still got more than 4 points from him.
This is it. The points that he got us, you can use for those, can't you?
Exactly.
Right?
So that's the way I'm justifying.
I mean, I look at it and it is a pain. I'm thinking of getting Bruno out next week to spread the funds around. And Jota would be my first target. I don't know if I'm going to take a -4 to do it and get SuperChats out as well. I might do. It's not out of the realms of possibility. The Firmino situation, he is one of the Brazilians banned, but also he's got an injury. So we think he's going to miss at least a couple of games is what the Liverpool Echo were kind of hinting at. I don't know. I think Jota looks the best midfielder, but we'll get to those in a minute. Nissan asked the next question that we picked out, and that is, with all the big hitters in the picture, is it worthwhile to go with a 4-3-3 formation and 2 4.5 mids? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I find it hard to build a decent 4-3-3. If anyone watched the Scoutcast last night, Andy North, Teach Mode, has gone 4-4-3, 4-3-3 currently.
What's he got?
He's got Christensen, Tierney, Trent and Shaw.
Right, so he's kept Trent.
Yeah.
And has he got Calvert-Lewin, Antonio and Ronaldo up front, right? That's the standard three now, isn't it?
Let me see if I can find it, and then I can let you know. My feelings are, if you're going to go for it, you need to have 4 attacking defenders.
Yeah.
Because I look at Christensen and I think, I'm not a massive fan of getting in someone who I think probably has a bit of rotation risk anyway, with Thiago Silva being around. But he's got no real attacking threat at all. And I think I think 5.5 defenders compared to 5.5 mids, you can make a case for. So like Reguilon's 5.2 now. I like the look of Shaw. I like the look of Tierney, Semedo. All these guys, 4.9 to 5.5 are pretty nice. And I think I'd rather have those over your mate and Bamo and Gray and these guys. But when you start getting to the 6 million midfielders, I quite like the look of like Sarr and Traore and Trincao and stuff. And I'd prefer those over. I'd back them. Then I'm favouring the attacker much more than the defence.
I'll tell you why I don't like it, and this is something that I've thought about in the last 20 minutes before we came on air. I couldn't think of a good reason initially, but this is one I'm going with. What I like to do, and what I see, is the most impactful transfers I can make are normally going to be in midfield, particularly if your front three are settled, because we got to look at it and think, okay, I'm going to have one of Lukaku, Ronaldo, and I'm going to have probably Antonio, and then I'll probably go Bamford or Calvert-Lewin, right? So I think most teams are going to have a mix of those players, right? And then if you're going 4 at the back, you don't really want to be making defensive transfers because they're low impact, right? So then when you look at your midfield, you've got Salah in there. You've only got 2 other players that you can swap in and out with your transfers. And odds on that, your weakest players are going to be your 3rd and 4th defenders probably, rather than your 2nd and 3rd midfielders. So I think you'll be restricting your ability to make impactful transfers.
It's flexibility, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's flexibility, and particularly when you've used your wild card. Like I do feel that when you use your wild card, you need to keep in mind that you're not going to have that get out of jail free card that you need to do. So when you want to start changing these players around, and this is the problem, right? If you've got Christensen and Tierney, and they're not performing, Tierney gets injured like he's bound to. With one transfer, you can't really do much. You have to move for another defender. If you want to take,
exactly.
But even if you take a -4, there's no 5 million midfielders. So you're going to have to make some changes around. I mean, Andy's team is Sarr in goal, Trent, Rudiger, not Christensen, Tierney, Shaw, Salah, Traore, Jota, Ronaldo, Antonio, Calvert-Lewin. There's nothing wrong with that team.
No, that's good. I mean, Rudiger does offer a bit of threat, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And definitely safer than Christensen, I think. So I look at that team and I think, yeah, that's a strong team. I don't think there's anyone really missing that. But the trouble is, when players like Rafinha start to hit form, which they might do at 6'5", or Ferran Torres, for example, becomes like an absolute must because he plays in every game and he's scored in the last 2 and he's playing, which will play Norwich. I mean, you know what I mean? Like the flexibility, I think, of that is exactly what you say. That's going to be.
Midfield is where it's at. Midfield, I find, are the most volatile players. Right? They're the players that come in out of form and get the bigger scores. Torres did it, 18 points last game week, right? So if you're set up with just 3 midfielders, you're limiting your ability to move into that, right? You look at the likes of Damari Gray, it's like, okay, he might be a flash in the pan, but he's a player that you'd want to have the ability to come and get for a couple of weeks. Traore is a good one as well. I know he's got him in there, but he's one of 3 midfielders. So, Smith Rowe with Arsenal's fixtures could suddenly blow up. Odegaard could as well. I mean, I know it's Saka. I know it seems unlikely now, but I think the players that break out, the players that become bandwagons, are normally, in my view, midfielders.
Yeah.
And so when you've only got 3 options there, because your funds are tied up in a 4-man defence.
Yeah, and the other thing as well is price rises, because it's the midfielders and the forwards who are most likely to get the explosive returns, and you want to get them in to catch the price rises. Like defenders, unless they go on a really crazy run, don't tend to go up huge amounts in price. But like Ben Rama, for example, went up 0.3, 0.4 off the back of a good couple of weeks. And at this stage, you want to have that in mind about building value, I think, too.
And also, I think we're early in the season still, so there's still midfielders like Smith Rowe who we haven't seen enough of with decent fixtures to know whether or not he's an option for our team.
Yep.
He could suddenly go on a run of 3 goals in 4 games, and suddenly it's like, well, we've got to have Smith Rowe, and then you've got to change your team structure quite a lot to get him in. So anything could happen with that. If we were 7 or 8 game weeks in, I'd be much more inclined to commit to a 4-3-3. But at the moment, I think it's a bit early. Anyway,
yeah, I don't hate it, but I don't think it's for me.
No. Pricey says, can we trust the likes of Greenwood, Jota or Torres to have extended runs in their respective teams? Would you consider the safest? Who would you consider the safest going into up to game week 7 or 8? So it's Greenwood, Jota was the question before, wasn't it? Pre-season, Greenwood or Jota, and I went Jota. I didn't go with him in my team, but that was my choice if I was going to go with one of the two. Torres is now in that mix as well, around the same price point, of course. Where's your allegiance on those 3 now?
Well, I don't trust Torres even slightly. not with De Bruyne and Foden coming back. I mean, he's a fairly versatile player, and we could see him move over to the left. But Grealish, I think, has kind of cemented that for now. It looks like Sterling can play there as well, although he can also play on the right. So there's options for where Torres can play, but I just never trust it. I think Greenwood is probably the one for me. I mean, I don't think Rashford comes back and slots straight back into the United side. Not with how Greenwood's been playing. And I don't think we're going to see a huge drop-off in form of Greenwood. I think he started the season so strongly. I think it's his place to lose. So I think last time we spoke, I said I didn't think Greenwood was in the strongest United 11, but I think he probably is now. I think it's Sancho on the left and Greenwood on the right, and Ronaldo up front. So I think if I was going to pick one of those, for an extended period, I'd go with Greenwood. But obviously the Firmino news of how long he's out for, I think would then elevate Jota above him if he's out for 3 or 4 weeks, something like that. Because then he's going to play basically, and he's got the best stats of
it's
better
crazy.
Stats than Ronaldo.
We looked last week, didn't we? And we looked at some data which looked at minutes per open play shot, minutes per shot on target, minutes per shot in the box, and obviously Ronaldo's Serie A data was well out on top. But there in second, representing the Premier League, was Jota. Really surprising, and he has figured well in our player data last season when he's played. So he's one of those players, it was a bit like the Jesus Aguero situation a few seasons back, that when Aguero's injured, you go Jesus, not so much. Yeah. It's not turned out to be that way, but that was the old adage, wasn't it? And I think it's become that with Firmino and Jota. Like, when you're certain Jota starts, his data suggests he's top tier. He's almost a heavy hitter, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a premium dressed in 7.6 mil clothing.
Yeah.
The only difference between those two examples is you don't get Firmino when Jota's injured, I think is... no one wants to go there.
No. He's certainly not Aguero. But yeah, I think you're right. I think Jota, I don't think there is a solution up to 7 or 8. I think none of those 3 can give you guaranteed starts. I think it's interesting what you say about Rashford. I just see him, Greenwood's 19. Rashford is a senior player, highly influential player. I don't think he keeps Rashford on the bench, no matter how well he's performing. I think Rashford... Again, though, it's another test of Ollie's management.
But don't you feel that Rashford is kind of in the decline a little bit? Whereas Greenwood's stock is just so... Yeah,
is Rashford finished already?
He's not finished, but I'd say at the moment, going by form, Rashford didn't have a particularly good season last year, at any point, whereas Greenwood towards the end was one of United's strongest players, again, like he was the year before as well. I haven't really seen too much from Rashford in years to make me think this is a guy who's going to, really, really go crazy.
I think Rashford's got his best years ahead of him still, just like Greenwood. I do. I don't think he's peaked by any means. And I think arguably he could benefit from Ronaldo quite a lot. I mean, obviously Greenwood can as well. I just think he's a senior player. Although he's young, he's a senior player. That's how I see it. Obviously he's got his reputation off the pitch as well. I just don't see Greenwood keeping it. And I think Sancho, as we discovered last week, he's going to be key because of that supply. Right? They need a more traditional wide player to feed Ronaldo, and Sancho is the only one they've got, really. Now James has gone. So I think Sancho's in eventually, maybe not in the next few weeks, but certainly by game week 7, I'd see Sancho in the team. And I think Rashford, when fit, will mean Greenwood will have to get benched. But I guess what is interesting is the Champions League, right? He could play Rashford in Champions League, Greenwood gets league games, and it could work like that. And again, it comes down to, this is going to be a fascinating period where we have to try and work out how Ollie's going to run Lingard we haven't even mentioned. Surely Lingard's only going to play in the front three if he plays at all. He's got to be in with a chance, Lingard, of getting some starts. Where's it going to be? It's going to be really interesting.
He's not going to start. I mean, Carabao Cup mainly, and young
Ollie
boys.
Ollie said he would have started game week 1 had it not been for the coronavirus issues.
Yeah, but that's because Sancho wasn't fully ready, right? And
he's not ready
Rashford's
now.
out. Well, that's
I don't know. I don't think Lingard's out of the equation by any means. So
he will be if he doesn't sign his contract.
Well, he's got 1 year left. He just wants to leave on a free and take his pick, doesn't he?
Exactly.
That's the idea.
That's not going to make Ole too happy, is it?
I guess not. I don't think any of them are long term. I think Greenwood is probably the most likely to still be in the team come game week 7. I agree with you there, but I would certainly go Jota for these next two and swap. And it's like I said, this illustrates my point on the previous question. Midfield is where you want to be making transfers. You don't buy a 7 million midfielder and go, he's in forever. You buy a 7 million midfielder and go, he's in for the next couple of weeks, then I'll move into the next one and then the next one. Because in that bracket from 6 million up to about 7.5, even as far as Havertz maybe at 8, is he 8.3 now? Havertz is a player, we're not going to have him for long term, but for a burst of games, Havertz should be someone we consider, right? So I think this is where you want that flexibility to adjust to where the form and fixtures are, which is why you don't have three in midfield. You want as many choice of options there and as many price points as you can get so you can react to it. So my answer to Pricey is, well, none of those three are really long term and you need to chop and change.
If you were to rank them for the next 6 weeks.
Yeah, Greenwood, Jota, Torres, which is surprising because, a week ago I loved Torres and like you said, he was going to be coming in for me in a couple of weeks, but the Foden KDB noise, adds noise and that changes things for me. So, yeah. Next question from Vishnav, and this will have me bring up some data. It's again about Jota, Torres, but another name that he mentions is Mason Mount, and it's quite interesting because I started looking at mid-price midfielders because it is kind of key. And again, it underlines the fact that these are where your transfers are going to be for that foreseeable future. I wanted to take a look at mid-price midfielders. So this is midfielders below, I think I went 8 million and below. I don't think Havertz is there, is he? Maybe he is. Maybe I did go up to Havertz. Yes, I did. Okay, so 8.5 and below. So I filtered by that. And then what I wanted to do, just to please our viewers and listeners who play with algorithms and models, and I am one of those players. I'm an FPL manager using models all the time to sanity check my decisions. I had a look at 3 of the big models out there. And when I say models, I don't mean Gianni. I mean as in algorithm models.
Oh, don't. His ego doesn't need that.
We're talking about Rate My Team, FBL Review and Fumantics, who are the 3 models that I look at. They've got values for the next 4 game weeks. And so I took those and produced an average for the midfielders on show here and then ranked them by that average. So in other words, Rafinha's on top at 17.7. That 17.7 is what the 3 models on average predict that he will get in terms of projected points over the next 4 game weeks. And so what you see here is that a collection of players around that price point based on the rating the models give them. And Jota is second. Rafinha is top, and I do think that he is the safest pick. But obviously what's confused that is this news of the Brazilian, bans. I think if Rafinha will play in game week 4 and I was making a transfer now, I think he's the sensible choice. Do you agree?
Yeah.
You're reluctant, aren't you? Yeah.
I'm already getting slated for my opinion on Rashford. I want to add Rafinha to the mix as well.
I did think it was controversial, but yeah, go on.
Well, just quickly on Rashford. I mean, lots of people pointing in the chat that he's had these injuries as well, and has still been returning points. I'm not denying that he's a quality player. I just wonder. I think he's got work to do to get back into the team. I don't think he just comes straight back in as soon as he's fit, and that's the end of Greenwood. That's the only point I was trying to make.
Yeah, sure.
So Rafinha, I love Rafinha. I think he's one of the most talented players in the league by far. That's my disclaimer. FPL wise, doesn't deliver. He doesn't deliver, and he just hasn't. He didn't deliver all of last season, really, not when we needed him to, and he started this season again, not really delivering. And I wonder. I think might be used a bit differently with Dan James coming in. I think we might see him in more central areas, and it'll be interesting to see what that does to his FPL impact, or whether. You think he's going to stay out on the right, don't you? Where he's, he can be a bit more tricky and a bit more direct. if he stays out on the right, I don't think he's as good as everyone makes out he is FPL wise. So I wouldn't put him top on my list.
Well,
model.
The only thing is if you look at Leeds fixtures. So after Liverpool game week 4, it's Newcastle away, West Ham at home, Watford at home, Southampton away, Wolves at home. They are very strong fixtures, right? And that is why, if you going back to the models over the next 4, he's coming out on top. I mean, I think Rafinha does deliver, but he delivers. He got one double-figure return in what was a very good debut season. Right?
The issue with Rafinha, and the thing that means I can't say, and that's as much as I've got against him, his price is just so good, and like 6.5, like he's in the bracket of players where he doesn't need to go crazy every week. He just needs to do well one week, okay the next, and stuff. And like he's obviously got the talent to be able to do that, and his stats have consistently been good. So it's hard to really build a case from him, but I want to see a bit. I just want to see a bit more from him.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, I watched him in the Burnley game and he disappointed me. He kind of was a bit more peripheral than I thought he would be. He's the kind of player who should be demanding the ball and coming central more, dropping deep to influence play, and he wasn't doing that enough.
I don't fear him like I do other players. You know?
If you don't have him, you don't fear him. You don't feel that he's explosive, and he's not. He's got one. He had that one double-figure return at Newcastle, and it's interesting because if you look at the ticker, it is going to be the Newcastle away game week 5 that I'm looking to get him in, and I had him in that game last season, and he returned double figures, and that's the only time he did. And I do think that is a good fixture for him because I think on the break Leeds will threaten Newcastle. And that home crowd, Newcastle will have to attack. So I think that is a very good game for Leeds and Rafinha. But going back to the question that we were asked on Twitter, and that is Jota Torres on Mount. Mount is one of the key players, and I was surprised where he turned up in this chart. So the models like him.
I like him.
He's 5th on 16.2 over the next 4 game weeks, right? And in his minutes per XGI non-penalty, which is also in our table, he's shown up really well. Like he's ranked top or second amongst the top 10 here.
It's the chances created. He created more chances than De Bruyne last season. He goes massively underrated just how creative he is, and like we've said before, he hasn't had Lukaku to aim at. So I see him as this kind of like steady, reliable player who's going to very rarely get over double-digit returns. But I think he's a better option than he was last year, and we should start to see more from him.
But they're quite similar, I think, Rafinha and Mount. Similar kind of players. Like you said, they're steady contributors of points. Yeah. They've got set pieces. They've got strikers in Bamford and Lukaku that they will feed and will convert. All right, Bamford misses some, but I think Mount there'll be an uptick in his performances and output as a result of Lukaku being there. How much, we don't know. We've got to wait and see. 7.5 versus 6.5. Yeah. And the fixtures at the moment are in Rafinha's favour, but obviously we know from game week 7 onwards, we probably do want to look at a second Chelsea attacker as well as Lukaku. And at the moment, Mount is probably my favourite option. Would I go early on him? I'm tempted, I mean, his fixtures what I've got here in the table is the rank for the next 4, and Chelsea's are ranked down there on 16th, so their fixtures aren't particularly strong in the next 4. If we bring them up here, they've got Villa at home, of course, but then Spurs and Man City before Southampton come to the Bridge. So the Spurs and Man City games aren't great, but the thing is with Mount, with Lukaku there, I still think there's return. You still look at it and think he can get a return in those games. Because the set plays, right? And it's the same with Rafinha in a way. Rafinha, you'd back to maybe get something against Liverpool because he's always creating and he's always, a force on set pieces.
Do you think he's completely nailed, Mount?
Mount, yeah. I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, I think he's... I look at the Ziyech's pre-season and obviously got that injury and stuff, and I just wonder where he's going to play, if anywhere. And then I look at Pulisic as well, and I just wonder if they put these players in, maybe there is less of a space for Mount with Havertz there as well. But then I just think how much Mount gets picked, and I think actually he probably is fairly nailed and not really. He's gonna play the majority, isn't he? He might get rested the old game, but
I guess
he's part of the first 11.
Oh yeah, of course, and we've got a couple of Champions League games to kind of gauge that. I think, and I think that's what I'd want to see. I'd want a bit more time, perhaps, and I think game week 7 is the perfect time to commit to Mount. Whether I'd go before that might be a concern. But I think he's as nailed as any of the Chelsea midfield.
I wish he'd had a good Euros. If he'd had a good Euros, I'd be really excited by him. But I feel a little bit flat when I think of him because he was maybe our worst player who started all the games in that tournament. It was really, really disappointing. So, yeah, I think that's put me off him a little bit. But I think from game week 7, he's still the one that I'd pair with Lukaku.
Yeah, but you wouldn't go now?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. The fixtures just aren't good enough.
So going back to the question there from Vishnav, Jota, Torres on Mount. I guess it'd be Jota short term, and then you switch to Mount game week 7 would be the way to go.
I think that's absolutely perfect. Because that might be when Firmino's coming back, and then you get the fixture on from Mount. So, that's
but I think just looking at this table again, it underlines the options we've got in midfield, which is why again, I think the mid price point, you want 4 midfielders at least, if not 5. Right? I think if you're going to go 3 midfielders, you are limiting your ability to impact your team with transfers. Is again the point. Other players on this list, for example, we haven't even mentioned Benrahma, who perhaps isn't going anywhere until West Ham's European.
He blanks, so then everyone gets sick of it.
Yeah,
because you don't see. There's so many wildcards I'm seeing now without
Benrahma. Yeah. But I guess the Europa League is the doubt there because they got Vlasic now, and we expect rotation, right?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, he's still been part of an absolutely fantastic start. I'm trying not to look at players who are in form as being risks. Like, I know we saw it with Mahrez where he was dropped after playing so well, but I do think it would be very, very brave to drop Benrahma like with the start that West Ham and he's had. You know, for at least a considerable thing. I think you'd be quite pessimistic, think, I'm not going to get Benrahma because he can't possibly continue this form, and there's going to be other players that kind of come in. So I'm trying not to look like that. If he's in form, he should be starting in the team, and if he doesn't, then that's more of a surprise than if he didn't play. So no, I don't think there's any real worry about his minutes. Maybe he might come off a bit earlier than the normal. Now there's a bit more rotation there, but you'd have still picked him if Lingard had signed, for example.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess again we need time, don't we, to see how. I think it's going to be Bowen who gets rotated. Bowen and Fornells probably who are the victims of the Vlasic arrival, but.
The partnership between Antonio and Benrahma is so evident, so obviously strong. Like, to take one of them out of the team now just seems like all the work they've done building the chemistry between them would be undone. So,
but you're right. I'm seeing wildcards without him, which is
most wildcards I've seen that have been.
Yeah, we're losing patience. And I think what's interesting when I did this study of the models is the players that the models don't pick out that are proving popular or would be targets. And we look right down the list, and it's Damari Gray. And to an extent Conor Gallagher, right? The models don't like those 2 players because there's no pass, there's no consistent returns from these players. So there's no data on which the models can reliably predict big returns for them. I mean, not all the models are the same. I think FPL Review had Gray slightly higher than the other 2. So all the models are different. But consistently, it's these players who show short-term form, and we saw it with Lingard last season, that you can't rely on the models to spot. The models are much better at telling you which of the consistent players to go for in any period. So, they're obviously looking at, in this period, Jota and Greenwood as players that they recommend because of the fixtures, because of the past, and because the track record of those players that the models predict. But someone like Gray, who suddenly appears as an option, or in some wildcards, isn't fancied by the model, and that's what we'd expect to see. So you've got to be careful how you use these, and I think that's where they're limited, right?
Well, it's completely wild. And, it's the same argument I keep having with people on Twitter who are so obsessed with these models. Well, these models don't win FPL, do they? And a perfect example last year was Gundogan. Gundogan's role completely changed. And when a player's role changes and models are basing things on maybe previous stats and previous performance and stuff, you need to be able to separate that out from what you're seeing on the pitch. And Lingard was a perfect example. Gundogan's a perfect example. We see changes in players or in formations or in the way, confidence as well, that indicates that these players can certainly be good picks. So I use these. I mean, I'm a big stats man, but I use them the same way as you to validate decisions. But you've got to watch games and you've got to see how players are on the pitch and not just base everything on this. And I'll fight that to my death. No,
I think you're right. Because I used to look after the Rate My Team model for Scout, right? So I used to work with Chris in maintaining that and updating it. And I often had issues where I was like, that a player could show form for 3 or 4 weeks, but the model doesn't like them. And then when we publish the latest data, we get questions about, well, how come this player's only got... And I had to go, well, that's because the model hasn't yet kind of recognised that short-term form, right? And that's it, right? It's you can't really have a model that adjusts that quickly. It doesn't work like that. So it's forgivable. It's not something we should criticise the models for. Short-term form, you don't go to the models for that. You have to use other sources, whether that be, your own, interpretation of data, or more likely the eye test, right? And that's where the eye test wins out, I think. But it's only a set few examples each season. We picked out Gundogan, Lingard, and Gray is doing it again at the moment, right?
Interesting one is Traore as well, because we know from the eye test that he can't finish. we've known that for ages, and I wonder how long if he scored 2 goals against Watford and then suddenly started to find his humours. I wonder how long it would take the model to adapt for that. Now kind of, because it'd be bringing his XG back in line with what he's performing, right? Because at the moment there's such a difference between that.
Huge,
that's why he's ranked so low. If the models were purely based on XG, he'd be right up there as one of the top top predicted scoring players, and we all would be getting him. But because it's Traore, we're a bit more hesitant. Yeah,
the model is suggesting he's not a player we can trust. Like the minutes per XGI non-penalty, 124.8. It's the best on show in this table.
Yeah,
but he's only...
And that's good, because I agree.
Yeah, but I think the model is correct. I don't think we can presume returns from him. So I think here the models are working really well. But that's because it's Traore is a player the models know very well. Damari Gray hasn't been in the Premier League for a few seasons, right? So it's less. Interestingly, on Green Arrow, Fergie said that he thinks Traore is going to get 4 attacking returns in the next 8. And I think Adam's taken him up on that bet. What do you think of that? Would you take that bet? 4 returns in the next 8?
I think he'll get 4 in the next 8.
Oh, okay, interesting.
I think he'll get 4 in the next 8 just from sheer volume of
this is
stuff that he's doing.
Yeah. Surely
like 4 assists in 8 wouldn't be an amazing...
You throw enough against the wall, something will stick, right?
Well, exactly.
And it is like that for Traore.
Yeah.
But he is an anomaly, isn't he? Incredible player in so many ways, and yet I've never known a player of his ability to lack that final product so much. It's crazy.
Tadic gets close. Remember his stats? He always used to be absolutely outrageous. And he hit the odd 16, 20 point haul, didn't he? But a lot of the time he was like top of all of the tables and everything, and never really did it.
But
he's doing it now, to be fair.
But Traore is in wildcards, right?
Yeah, I know.
He's going to be in one we look at later.
Well, the problem with Traore is the good thing about Traore is Jimenez, and Jimenez is difficult to fit in when you've got Calvert-Lewin, Lukaku, Ronaldo, and Antonio.
Yeah.
So if you want to tap into the Wolves attack, it's Traore as the next option. I still like Trincao. I haven't seen Trincao in a single team. I still think he's a good pick as well, and I think he's got more end product in him than Traore.
Yeah, I totally agree. But again, it's like these are the fun players. These are the players you get in for a couple of weeks and hope for the best, and that's why you want at least 4 midfield slots. I'll say it again and again until it sinks in. But yeah, that's how I feel about that. Going back to the questions, the next 2 are going to be on the captains, so we're going to look at them a bit later. But for now, we're going to look at our predictions for the weekend for Game Week 4. And this is where we stand at the moment. And I noticed that I've crept ahead as on the outcome, still at 50%. You down to 47.
It's one in it.
Yeah, 15 to 14 correct outcomes so far. I'm on 4 correct scores to your 2, but you're beating me on clean sheets again. You did this last season. I can't figure out how you're doing that. Why clean sheets you're better at than me? I need to figure that out. There's got to be a reason.
I don't know either.
We'll see.
No idea.
It was consistent with last season's form, though, that's sure. Game week fixtures then. Let's start with Crystal Palace and Spurs, which is a 12:30 kickoff. Not really a garden centre game. I think we want to watch this one. But I don't predict a thrilling encounter, particularly if Son doesn't play. I've gone 1-1. You've gone with a Palace win.
I've gone with a Palace win. Yeah, I've gone with a Palace win. I think Gallagher's a player. And I think we wanted to see some signs from Palace and Vieira that they could get something, and they played well against West Ham. So I think this could be a bit of a wake-up call for Spurs. And I think a wake-up call for Spurs is coming, because they've had 3 1-0 wins, not really performed amazingly well in any of the games, kind of done what they needed to. Okay, against City, maybe that's a bit harsh. They were brilliant in that game. But very, very lucky against Wolves, for example, and lucky against Watford too. So I think there's a draw maybe. I think there's a wake-up call coming, and I just wonder if it might be this game. Yeah,
and I also think Palace have shown enough to suggest they've got a bit about them, and they've got Edouard in as well. I presume he's going to be in line for debut, so that will lift them. They'll have somebody who can finish in central areas. They've not had that for a while. How quickly is he going to get up to speed? We don't know, but he should be a factor this season for them. And Gallagher, you're right, he's on a high. So they've suddenly got options, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. If Son's fit, though, I think this could be a different game. I'm kind of running with the assumption that Son's going to be out. If he's fit, then I think Spurs will probably.
Although Son hasn't scored at Palace in 6 outings, I think I read. He's got a really poor record at Palace. Yeah.
Interesting. Different Palace side, I guess. A bit more expansive, maybe a bit more space under Hodgson.
Yeah, I think they're more. I think they're more enterprising under Vieira, right? So I think they're going to be a more exciting team to watch. So when they're on telly, I think I'm going to watch them this season. I expect more from them. Arsenal Norwich. Not sure I've watched this one though. We've both gone 1-0 because I think you see the same as me, right? You see this being quite an atrocious game where both teams are on edge, and in the end, Arsenal nick it, right? That's all I see.
Yeah, I've seen a few people mentioning Aubameyang lately, thinking maybe he's a kind of a 1 week punt to bring in. Arsenal should win it. I think Norwich they've been okay. But they're both of them are trying to avoid the record of the worst start to a season ever. I think if one of these teams loses by 3 goals or more, they'll have the worst ever start to a Premier League season. Because they both obviously got beaten 5-0 by Man City. Yeah. So Arsenal, obviously want to avoid that. If they lose 3-0 to Norwich, that'd be a complete disaster. But you got to think Arsenal are going to win this, even though they've been poor. Yeah,
and that's what I'll go with. But I just don't see it being an open game. I think it's going to be very edgy indeed. No. So I'll go to 1-0. We're different on the next one. Brentford, Brighton. You're going for Brighton win again. You really are showing some bias with the Brighton predictions this season so far. Fancy him, do you?
Well, we've been all right, except for against Everton, where we just let Damari Gray run through and score. I was worried about that game. I put us down for a draw, but never really felt particularly good about it. It's a game that we should win, right? It's a newly promoted team. They're still kind of adjusting to life in the Premier League, and we've been playing well. So I just can't believe we didn't sign a striker. I just don't know what. And then you see Edouard going to Palace for like 15 million. And it's like we were linked with him all summer. Like, why haven't they just signed him? Maybe he didn't want to come. But yeah, I'm going to back Brighton to have a bit too much for Brentford. I think Brentford will score.
I see it the other way. That home game against Arsenal, we saw how much the crowd lifted Brentford, and they performed really well in that game. They could and should have probably scored more goals from open play. In the end, they relied on the long throw for the second goal, but they had chances. So I think they're going to continue to surprise us now. I'm going for 1-0. Leicester, Man City, we're both in agreement here. We only see one result. You see Leicester scoring. I don't see a Leicester goal coming in this game.
The only reason I see a Leicester goal is because Ederson's out and Steffen's out, and it's probably going to be Scott Carson playing in goal.
Good old Scott Carson.
He saved a penalty last season. I don't think he's even in the game at the moment.
Did you see someone on Twitter said that Scott Carson is the oldest 36-year-old they've ever seen, and even Mark on FPL BlackBox looks younger at 50? I saw that. I didn't like that. I must like that.
He is. You compare him to Ronaldo at the same age.
He's had an easy life as well. Yeah, exactly. He's had an easy life on the bench for week after week, and yet he does look like he's been through the ringer.
It's that thing he did for England when he just let the ball go through him. I think that's what did him in.
Yeah. No, I didn't factor in. I made these predictions 24 hours ago. I didn't factor in the Brazilians missing for City. I still back a 2-0. I don't know about. I don't like Leicester this season. I just haven't seen anything from them that excites me yet. And I'm seeing Vardy looks more lively. They need the two up top again. They need to go back to be playing an acting actor. So. And until they do, I'm not buying in. So.
Yeah, I think they absolutely do. And I'm just going to keep beating the drum. I don't know what that means for Barnes. And this, I don't know if Rodgers really knows what to do with that. I think it was quite easy for him when Barnes was out and Iheanacho was playing well. And now I just can't believe Iheanacho isn't playing. Hasn't started the season after how good he was.
You say it almost every week until he gives in and Rodgers plays him. Yeah. Okay, this is going to be controversial. I've gone 1-0 United. I have to, right? I'm not going Ronaldo, so I can't go 5-0 because then I'll be going, why aren't I getting Ronaldo then? It's madness. So I've got to. My theory here is, like I said earlier, that I think it's going to take a bit of time. And Newcastle will turn up with a 5-man defence and have no interest in whatsoever in counter-attacking. I don't think Callum Wilson's going to play. I think he's out. I don't think they're going to carry much of a goal threat other than Sam Maximin, who'll probably play up front on his own and try and beat United defenders on the break. That's about the only threat they're going to carry. You kind of know how Bruce is going to play it. And I think the occasion might get to United a bit and they might get frustrated, but they'll nick one. That's what I'm going with. You're going for a landslide victory, right?
Oh, no, they batter them.
I mean, yeah, your theory is stronger than mine. I'll give you that.
They've got better players in just about every position. They're at home.
Of course.
They've just signed. It's Ronaldo. And Newcastle are crap. So they'll batter them by all logic, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that you mentioned the team data. Let's just look at Newcastle on that. This is the team data so far, and looking at minutes per XG non-penalty, Newcastle are third from bottom behind Burnley and Arsenal. They have conceded a chance every 5.4 minutes. Only Burnley and Arsenal have conceded chances more frequently. No, Spurs have actually as well. That'll be the City game. So, yeah, the data suggests that Newcastle don't have a defence that's going to stand up to it, right?
The thing is, he's going to set them up so defensively as well.
Yeah, well,
Wilson's out, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's gonna just massively look to frustrate, but they've just got players that can unlock them. Like Fernandes, Sancho, Greenwood's going to be playing. Like, they're just going to have
I
way
know,
too much.
But my theory is if Ronaldo starts, everything's about Ronaldo, isn't it? Everything's about, we've got to get him the goal, right? They're going to start thinking we've got to feed Ronaldo and it'll happen. I don't know. I just don't know what to expect. That's what's really fascinating. I don't know how United adjust to having a player like Ronaldo in their team. I don't know if it's seamless and he just slots in and everything comes together and they win 3 or 4-0. I think there's every chance that it's like 68 minutes and it's still 0-0 and when's this goal going to come? I think that could happen. And that's my theory.
Maybe. I'm not buying it.
No, of course not. Fair enough.
If he starts, Ronaldo scores without a doubt. I'd bet any money on it.
Oh, I might take that bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might take that bet. We'll settle on the sum afterwards.
Have a charity bet coming, I think.
I don't necessarily think that's the case. That's hence the 1-0. I think Greenwood gets the goal, but we'll see. Southampton, West Ham. Both gone 2-1. You've gone 2-1, I've gone 3-1. And it's interesting when we get to the captaincy because there's a lot of talk this week about why are we taking our eyes off Antonio for the captaincy. And I think that's a very good point. And I think West Ham win this convincingly.
Yeah, it's just the quality of other premium options with good fixtures, Lukaku, Ronaldo and Salah. And are we quite ready to it's not because it's not just Antonio, right? If it's Antonio playing for you, okay, not United. If it's Antonio playing up front for Chelsea, then that's one thing, but it's still West Ham, and I still think reliability-wise, backing the better teams with better players has to be the way to go. Because everyone was expecting West Ham to do over Palace, right? I think we had 2-0, 3-0. No one really expected them to do anything, and Palace turned up, and really took the game to West Ham. So I don't think West Ham are quite ready to be considered as perma captains. Not when the options with the premiums are as strong as they are this week.
Would you think it'd be different if Antonio was priced more? Because we know in the past we've been blinded by the fact that it's a 7-5 option, it's a 6-5 option, and despite the form, we don't back them. I think even when Mahrez and Vardy were performing for Leicester, it took a while for us to come round to that. Do you think that plays a part in it as well? If he was a 10 million forward, would we back him more often?
I don't know. You could say the same with like Gundogan last season, right? Like when he was like 6 million, 6.5, he was really captained by people. But then I think it was a double game week, and then he was one of the highest. I don't know. Personally, I try not to care too much about that kind of thing. I think the premium players play for better teams. I don't think you can really discredit that. I think there's a time and a place to captain a non-premium asset who tend to be more reliable and play for better sides. And I think last week was perfect because we weren't really sure about the others. But this week, there are 3 teams with fixtures that I prefer to this one.
Okay, it's interesting. Maybe we just go back to that comfort too often and overlook players. And I think Antonio's very, very decent tip for the captaincy as we look at the data. What for Wolves? Difference of opinion here. You've gone for the away win. Obviously, Traore to deliver one of his 4 attacking returns in the next 8. You think?
Yep.
Jimenez maybe, if he's allowed to play. I don't think he is though. Jimenez is out, isn't he?
I haven't seen it confirmed.
I think that's confirmed.
Is it confirmed?
I think I've seen in chat earlier that there was something confirmed on that. So
interesting. Yeah, that obviously. I just think Wolves have been playing too well not to get a win soon. And if they lose to Watford, that would be bad. Watford have had a really strange start. Wolves have been consistently good, but not got any points. Whereas Watford played really well against Villa and then were absolutely dreadful against Brighton, and then put in a decent defensive performance against Spurs. So I'm just not really sure what we're going to get from them. Whereas I've seen consistently for 3 games that Wolves are capable of scoring. So yeah, I'm just backing them.
I think there'll be goals in this, but I'm going off the basis that Watford we know coming up from the Championship they were very strong at home, and I think what we saw against Villa was that they were just so passive in the 2 away games. I'm hoping, because I've got Sarr, that we see something of the Villa game in this home game. And I think Wolves defensively have surprised me. I thought they'd be open, as you do. That hasn't been the case. Yeah. But I'm going to go 2-1 here, just for the fun of it. I've got to tip my man Sarr to get something. Chelsea Villa 3-0 for me. You've gone 2-0. Again, biased with Lukaku. I've gone for the bigger win. It probably does depend on whether Lukaku plays. I think he does. I don't see a reply from Villa because their attacking data so far has suggested they're carrying very minimal threat right now.
They're carrying very minimal threat, and they're losing Buendia for this game. So their main creative hub is now not playing, and they're losing Martinez, who's the only chance they've got of keeping some of the Chelsea shots out. They've got no chance.
Yeah, and they're playing against the best defence in the league, possibly, right? So.
Sorry, Villa fans. Villa have been poor attacking wise. They're losing 2 key players, and they're playing the most informed team in the league. So yeah, no way they're going to win this. But it's the Premier League, so they probably will win. That tends to be what happens.
No, I don't see it. I think this is. If I was picking a result here for a banker, it would be this one.
Yeah, definitely. Same.
Yeah. That's the famous last words, isn't it?
Yeah,
that'll be cut out.
1-0 Villa.
Okay, Leeds Liverpool. Look at this. We've gone for an absolute thriller on the Sunday. It's the only game we're getting on Sunday, but what a good one. I've gone 2-2. You've gone the 3-2 Liverpool. Yeah, I'm of the same mind in that I think this will be an all-out. I see Liverpool taking the lead and Leeds pegging them back, as we saw against Everton.
Yeah, really, really interesting one. And I think I do wonder if Liverpool are going to. They've got some quite key injuries and suspensions, and if Fabinho's going to be out and stuff. And I think they've got the Champions League as well that they want to start thinking about. They've got a tough group as well. So I just think, maybe they might have one eye on that. They might make some interesting like first 11 decisions. Maybe Simicast comes in for Robertson, for example, because obviously Robertson's played quite a lot internationally, and then he's going to be back for the Champions League. So we might see a bit of a change up Liverpool's side, and then Leeds can kind of maybe take advantage of that. So
no Alisson maybe, right? If that ban is upheld, Alisson's a massive loss to them.
That's what I mean. They could have some real key people missing from this game. So I just think even with a second string side, they should still have enough for Leeds. And Leeds have been fairly disappointing so far. I think.
Yeah, I don't right. I'm well into Leeds still. It's interesting because I'm probably going to go Bamford next week with my transfers. And I may well double with Rafinha as well. I just think the fixtures are so strong, and I haven't lost faith in Leeds at all. I'm a big Bielsa believer, so I think we'll see.
By United, but
they did last
against
season.
Everton, and then poor against Burnley. Really poor.
They were just okay against Everton. They played well against Everton. They were poor at Burnley, though. I'll give you that. But I think we'll see something in this game ahead of their good fixtures to make us go, hello, we do need at least one of their players over that run. So we'll see. And finally, if a garden centre is open on Monday night at 8 o'clock, I'll have a look. I don't think Squires is open that late. I would consider it. I would consider it. I think this would be pretty dull. I have predicted a 2-0, so have you. That's almost like a default result, though. I don't know. I'm not. While I'm convinced on Leeds that they will come good, I'm yet to be convinced by this positive Everton that we've seen. And this Calvert-Lewin train. I've got more questions about Everton than I have Leeds at the moment. But I'm still backing a 2-0 win because Burnley are poor.
I think no team's conceded more headers or more shots in the box than Burnley this season. And Everton have got a system which is perfectly suited to get balls into the box and win Calvert-Lewin to win headers. I think if Calvert-Lewin starts, he could potentially be a captaincy consideration to make. He's the only one outside, I think, of the main 3.
It's very interesting you would say that because when we get to the data, there's a lot to support that view. Yeah,
he's the one, and I think if Calvert-Lewin is past fit, I think that gives me I can easily move Ings to Calvert-Lewin and not have to take all these elaborate hits that I'm thinking of, and that might be something that I think about doing.
What do you think Sean Dyche thinks of the Brazilian Football Federation for letting Richarlison play because out of a favour? Do you think? I mean, that if you're Sean Dyche, you can imagine him, can't you?
Oh yeah,
yeah, it would be blues for that one. Oh yeah, thanks Brazil, thanks for that.
It's
let him
very-
off because you
it's
scratched
very
our backs
strange,
back
isn't
then.
it?
It's very odd.
I think it's to do with the Olympics, isn't it? Because he was in the Olympics and he performed well, but it's favouritism, right?
Yes,
No matter
you
what way
scratch our
look at it.
back, we'll scratch yours.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Very, very odd. I mean, this is why perhaps they haven't got a leg to stand on if Premier League test the, if they try and push on that. We'll see. As we record this at the moment, Richarlison plays and the other Brazilians don't, but we'll have to see what happens. I want to just go back to those questions before we look at let's look at the captain matrix first. This is looking ahead at the captaincies over the next 4 game weeks at the moment. And Ronaldo has been installed as my favoured.
I thought I said Rondon. I'm losing my mind.
Ronaldo's in there as the favoured captain. I reluctantly put him in over Lukaku and put Lukaku as the differential choice.
Too big of you, Mark.
I think that's fair enough. I think that will be the way that majority go. Obviously, personally, if Lukaku's fit, I think he will outscore Ronaldo in game week 4. But
So if you had Ronaldo and Lukaku in your team, you'd still pick Lukaku? If both were starting?
yeah, I think I would.
Is...
I think I would, because I just think Martinez missing him for Villa is a big factor. I think Chelsea are already set up to play with Lukaku because they've had 2 games of him already. He's had time with the team. He's had time with training. Ronaldo, although it's a Ronaldo, it's such an unknown. We said there's no data, there's no eye test. We're just presuming he goes straight in, and because he's the greatest of all time, immediately he gets a goal on his debut.
I'll make 2 bets with you.
It's assumptions.
For charity.
Go on then, for charity,
£10 each.
Yep.
Firstly, if both start, Ronaldo outscores Lukaku.
Right.
And secondly...
That includes assists as well, does it? Because Ronaldo doesn't get assists.
Yeah, include just outscores FPL-wise. And secondly, if Ronaldo starts, he scores.
Okay. Well, both are going to come in, aren't they? For me, I think. I think Lukaku is more likely to score, and I think Lukaku's got assists, so I think he outscores him.
Cool. I'm literally putting your money where
Yeah, I will do. I will do. We're taking a bet out. We're taking a leaf out of Adam and Fergie's book here and having bets. So maybe we should do this every week. Maybe we should start betting with them as well. Okay, so elsewhere though for this week, we're going to look at the captains in a minute. But looking forward, talking about Antonio, I've now installed him as a differential captain almost every week. I think it's only one game week where he's got a tough fixture that he's not on there now. And it's quite interesting. The differentials are quite strong every week. Like there's lots of options there all the way through. So I think even if you don't have Ronaldo and you don't fancy Salah, there are some decent options available anyway going forward. I do think with the Leeds fixtures improving, I think Bamford's going to become a factor from game week 6 and 7. I think game week 6 is very interesting with Villa at home for Ronaldo and Salah or Brentford away. I think that's really close. Where are you going there? Say you've got Ronaldo. Are you going with Salah or are you going to go Ronaldo there?
That is a very tricky one. Because I mean, Brentford have both Brentford and Villa have both been fairly decent defensively as well. Villa have been really blunt in attack, but defensive numbers I believe are quite good. I think I would go for Salah.
Yeah, interesting.
the Martinez factor, I think.
I'll see if you go there. But even in that week, I mean, I've highlighted Calvert-Lewin at home to Norwich. Right, you talk about defences who can't defend headers. Norwich are really weak in that respect, and they came into the Premier League with a weak record for aerial duels from the Championship, and we saw what Antonio did to them when they're faced with a striker who's very direct, very muscular, good in the air. Calvert-Lewin could really get a haul against Norwich. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he turns out to be a really strong differential in that week. And for game week 5, I've looked at Torres at home to Southampton, and we talk about, well, we don't trust Torres now. But if he doesn't feature in the Champions League game, I think he looks good in that game week to start. And if you've got him, you captain him, right?
Maybe, yeah. It's just a Salah Palace game, isn't it? But I mean, if Palace put in another good performance against Spurs, then I kind of still got Palace as this kind of whipping boy type thing. But that West Ham game, I thought, actually, there's something about this team that I quite like. I really wanted to see, not from a Brighton rival perspective, but from an FPL perspective, I like to see teams with a bit of potential. And I think Gallagher's definitely got that. So, yeah, I think if Palace put in a good performance and then Torres misses out, like you say, I think it would be very tempting. That's kind of not ideal for us if we don't go for him and that does transpire. Because then we will have the fear, I think, with a Man City 7 million guy playing up front against Southampton at home. Yeah.
That's where the wildcarders, if they go with him, have got that option. Yep. I just think it's great. I think what Lukaku and Ronaldo have done as well, and we haven't really touched on this yet, is they've thrown the captaincy wide open now.
Mm.
For once, it's not just about Salah and Bruno now. Arguably, Bruno might come out of the argument now, but Salah's going to stay in it. Ronaldo and Lukaku are definitely going to be in it. And we hope, eventually, one of the City boys comes in as well. Mm. And then that's without considering the likes of Antonio, Calvert-Lewin and Bamford, who I think actually will show enough consistency to edge themselves into the conversation as well. So I think the captaincy this year is going to be is really, really good. It's shaping up.
Absolutely. And I mean, game week 5, for example, I mean, if Ronaldo does look good against Newcastle and your fears of him not really settling in and or whatever, allayed, then he becomes, it's Salah versus Ronaldo, I think, for a lot of people in that game. Because at the moment, it's Salah. But I think easily, if I had Ronaldo and he does well against Newcastle, West Ham are leaky. So I'd probably favour him. If I see enough good signs. Yeah,
it's interesting, isn't it? How quickly does Ronaldo become perma-captain?
Exactly.
Right? We talked about it last week and we looked at his record against the top 6. And yet, because it's Ronaldo, I don't think it takes very much for people to go, I'm putting it on him every week.
When he just leaps in the air and scores a header in like the 15th minute and you think, oh yeah, I remember, he's actually really good at football, isn't he?
When Jamal Lascelles puts him in his back pocket for the entire 90 minutes, what am I saying?
This is a hell of a hill to die on.
I think what is interesting, when we get to game week 7, that's when Lukaku really comes in. He's got those 5 games, and then we'll see if we can break his monopoly of the captaincy. Because I think it is difficult to look beyond Chelsea over those 5, but we get to that in later weeks.
The next like 3 game weeks are so crucial because at the moment everyone's just penciling in Ronaldo to Lukaku for game week 7. But if Ronaldo gets 6 goals in the next 3, who's going to be making that move? You're not going to be selling Salah.
I know, it's going to be great. It's going to be great to get to that point and see whether or not people can make that. I mean, I've died on that hill already. I'm going Lukaku. I've got him in early, but I'll be watching everybody else to see if they get to 7 and still make that switch. Really, really interesting.
Absolutely.
Go back to the questions because there were 2 on the captaincy. If you don't own Ronaldo or Lukaku going to game week 4, who's the best captaincy out of Salah and Antonio? We're going to look at that in a minute. Would you consider captain Bruno? And Mo Hafiz. It was special agent after the previous one. Mo Hafiz says, is Antonio now in the captain mix for big boys like Salah, Bruno and Kane? And we've talked about that already. And as we look at the data for game week 4, he very much is, right? So what we're showing here is the captain candidates. We're sorting by minutes per XGI non-penalty so far. It is only 3 weeks data, right? So again, we've got to caveat this. How much can you rely on 3 weeks data to select your captain? But there's no doubt Antonio's record outside of the stats, 4 goals, 4 assists, a shot every 16.8 minutes. West Ham confident. Benrahma and Antonio confident. He goes to Southampton. He's got to be a candidate, hasn't he?
Yeah. I mean, he is. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't be surprised to see people go for him under sort of any other circumstance. But like I said, I just think when you've got top teams playing in sides where you're expecting goals, I just think the potential for them to... Again, it comes down to if Southampton win that game 1-0, you're not that surprised. Whereas if Villa win 1-0 against Chelsea, it's like the biggest shock of the last 5 years because of the options they've got. So I think you've got to favour the fixture where there's less chance of a major surprise, and that's what the premium options give you, I think. So I don't know. If it was tougher games, I'd say absolutely, like it was last week. But for me, it's still those premiums. I'd be captaining Salah over Antonio any day this week.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I think Calvert-Lewin makes a case, though. Not so much for his data. He's had a shot every 22.5 minutes. He's had 2 penalties, of course. So his minutes per XGI non-penalty is 150.3, which is below the likes of Torres, Antonio and Lukaku going into the game week. Because 2 of his goals have been penalties, right? But what supports Calvert-Lewin's case is Burnley's defensive record so far. And we look in the lower table here. They've conceded a shot every 5.1 minutes, which is only, I think Arsenal got a worse record than that. Minutes per XG conceded non-penalty 44.7, the worst amongst the captain candidates opposition. Yeah, I mean, we've gone 2-0 Everton, but it could be more, couldn't it? So Calvert-Lewin, if he's fit, he could be a great option. Yeah, and like Burnley have got this reputation as being this really strong kind of defensive side, but they're kind of not really at the moment. And especially with crosses as well, they seem to really be struggling, even though they've got, kind of such good in the air defenders, and they have been for a while. Like, they don't score that many set piece goals, even though everyone thinks they kind of do. And I wonder how good Tarkowski and me actually are kind of in the air with deep things. You look at numbers like this, you think, well, actually, teams have worked out they can create a lot of chances kind of this way.
So I think this is a really, really tough game for Burnley, and I just think they're playing a team where they've just got this, in the bag. It'll be interesting when they play United eventually. If United's crossing is up to speed and they've got Ronaldo, you've got to think they're going to have a big old win against them as well.
You'd think, wouldn't you? You'd be mad not to think that. Yeah, I mean, obviously what I've highlighted there in the data is we have no data on Ronaldo, right? So we have nothing to go on whatsoever. And yet, I think anyone who's got him is going to catch him for Game Week 4, right?
Mark, it's Ronaldo.
I just can't wait until the data starts coming in and we see how it compares, because then the speculation starts to diminish, right? And it becomes the eye test. We've seen it and we see it in the data, and I expect Ronaldo to be in this table every week, right? He's going to be a captain candidate every single week, regardless of opposition, even against City, I expect.
Yeah.
So it'll be fascinating to see how he compares to the players that are currently at the top, Lukaku and Antonio, because I don't think Lukaku and Antonio are going anywhere either. I think those two, in terms of XG, shots per minute, and goals and assists, are going to be right up there all season. So how will Ronaldo measure up to those?
I think what the other thing I'm really looking forward to is just what happens to Fernandes, because there is just this universal opinion that he's just not going to be a factor anymore. And he got an open play hat-trick 2 weeks ago. So he's going to lose penalties. I've got absolutely no doubt about that. And I don't think he's going to justify being worth 12 million. But like you talk about, getting rid of him for a hit before Newcastle and just suddenly not being a factor at all in our seasons. I mean, it'd be interesting if he, say he does continue off where we left off in Game Week 1 and he's being consistently getting 10 points. The hell do we do then? Do we have to work it? Do we have to work him into our team somehow? Go before.
Well, this is it. It's like, they won that game, their first home game, so convincingly. So do they put Ronaldo in the team and go, well, don't do what we did on the last home game. I know we won 5-1, but let's not do that. Let's change our game completely because we've got Ronaldo now. That doesn't make much sense, does it? Right. So I don't think that happens overnight. If you're Bruno and you think, last time I played at Old Trafford, I got a hat-trick, you're not suddenly going to go, right, my job now is to feed Ronaldo at all costs and not get into the box. So I don't know. I mean, this is it. We're all presuming that's going to be the case, that he's not going to make those runs and Greenwood's not going to part and allow him forward and get into the box because Ronaldo's going to occupy that space. We don't know, but we're making a lot of assumptions. And
I wonder,
it's difficult.
If anyone can dig this stat out, I'll be impressed. How many times has Fernandes assisted Ronaldo for Portugal?
Well, it's not good, apparently. I don't know. I've only heard anecdotally that they haven't yet clicked as a pair. And we know that Bruno obviously didn't make the first 11 in the Euros, right? So he hasn't had a good time of it recently on the international stage. So I think it's difficult to judge when Bruno's been in and out of the team, maybe. I don't know. A lot of assumptions, and I want to see this work first. I want to see it prove that Bruno's going to become a shadow of the FPL asset he's been. But having said that, I plan to get rid of him because I'm presuming without penalties.
I was going to say, imagine if you end up sticking with him after
it could
start of
happen,
the season saying you didn't even want him.
I know. I mean, I think if he has a good game against Newcastle and he scores, it's going to be very difficult to suddenly go, well, no, he's not the player he was. I guess the black and white is the penalties. 9 goals from the penalty spot, half of his output. If that's gone, and we think it is, it's difficult to justify the 12 million. But in a one-off game, he can still provide. And I wouldn't. I put this out there, and I'm not going to bet this. I wouldn't be surprised if Fernandes outscores Ronaldo in Game Week 4. That would be an outcome, wouldn't it?
I would be.
I'm not putting my money on that one, though.
I would definitely take that bet if you were.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, let's look at your team and see where your captaincy is at. And then currently it is on Antonio, but that depends on whether you're taking this 4 or 8 point hit. Is it going to be an 8 point hit?
Oh, to leave it on. Sorry, I didn't mean to leave it on Antonio. Well, the 8 point hit would be Ings, Fernandes, and Tsimikas out for Calvert-Lewin, Ronaldo, Jota, and one of Semedo or Tierney. Because of the good run. So I'm addressing the Tsimikas problem. I'm addressing the Ings fixture swing, and I'm addressing the fact I think Fernandes is going to be less of an option. So you know what I mean? It's an 8 point hit, but really it's a 4 point hit to get Ronaldo in, and then a 4 point hit to get rid of Tsimikas. And I am literally looking at it like he's done really well for me, and I can afford to spend those 4 points on dealing with that issue because this was the worst case scenario, right? The worst case scenario was Jota became a massive factor in our seasons. And we all talked about it at the start, and the blocking of Simicast is an issue, which I'm happy to spend 4 points to rectify if I need to. So that's the 8-point hit. The 4-point hit. The other option, would just be to do Ings to Calvert-Lewin. And trust you. Fernandes is going to outscore
I prefer
Ronaldo.
that. I mean, I just think it's crazy, isn't it? Because I only got Bruno in for game week 4, and yet there's so many managers here thinking getting rid of Bruno. And yes, the penalties are a factor, but he got a hat trick from open play in the first game, so he didn't need a penalty in that one. And in the second home game, we're all going, let's get rid of Bruno because he hasn't got penalties anymore because Ronaldo's going to be in the team. It's amazing how much it's shifted on the basis of. But it shows you what a special player Ronaldo is. I think only Ronaldo, perhaps Messi, could have done this to our thinking and scrambled our thinking so radically. And it's testimony to the player he is. Right?
Guess who was bench in their first game? Messi.
Yeah. Well,
came off the bench.
Maybe their manager was stronger than Solskjaer's going to be. But
yeah, I think that's probably right. The other thing with my -8 as well is it means I wouldn't have to play Veltman. Because I'm really not a fan of the double Brighton double up away at Brentford and with Tony as well. So yeah, the -8 really does, fix quite a few issues.
Okay. Salah's your captain if you don't hit, or would you go Calvert-Lewin?
It would be close. It would be close. And I know all I've been saying this whole podcast is always go with the premium, but that Burnley fixture looks so ripe for Calvert-Lewin. I think with the injury scares that he's had, I think I'd probably play it safe and keep it on Salah. But yeah, I might be tempted.
I see that as well. Okay, I'm going to be intrigued to see what you do. I'm doing absolutely nothing because I'm banking my transfers for game week 5.
I get so jealous when you do that.
Well, I think it's meant that this break has gone easy for me because I'm just like, well, I'm settled on this team. Sarwan and Bemo, of course, aren't players that I probably think long-term, but Sar's got good fixtures now, and they've both got a home game. I think both Watford and Brentford can score in those home games, and those two players could be in the mix, so I'll keep them. And Lukaku, obviously, I committed to him before Ronaldo even arrived, right? So I'd made that move on the Monday night. And then, obviously, it all transpired Wednesday, Thursday, that Kane was staying at Spurs and Ronaldo was going to United. So having committed to that, I think I've got to stay with it. And I'm okay with it because, obviously, the Martinez absence will help me, I think. And as long as Lukaku's fit, you've heard me tonight, I think he outscores Ronaldo. So we'll see. We'll see.
Interesting. You've got the same thing as me, though. You've got the Brighton defensive double up and a Brentford player. It's not nice, is it?
No, it's not nice. But it's going to happen over the season. And this is a weak team in terms of any depth because I've got Ayling and Simicast on the bench who probably do nothing for me. But I'll have 2 transfers going into next week, and then I can make that Fernandes move, and it'll probably be Fernandes out for possibly Rafinha, and then Bamford coming in for Perica, and then that give me much more depth, and it'll give me 2 leads going into their fixture run. And of course, with Lukaku already in place for game week 7, I can then think about saving transfers to maybe double or treble on Chelsea ahead of that. That's the tactic. And then I don't need the wild card. And then I take the wild card into 14, and then I go back. I go to Ronaldo then. That's the plan. And as we know, plans, we can rely on them. It's not like they get ripped up.
Never change.
No, of course they don't. So it's all good. Talking of plans then, and by the way, Lukaku captain, of course. Natalie's playing the wild card, right? And this is what you got from her at the moment. So Natalie, if you don't know, is our apprentice, right? Do you want to just introduce that for those who are not aware of what we're doing?
No, so if you're new to the channel, one of our new subscribers, hello. At the start of the season, Mark and I took on 2 apprentices, one of which we decided would have full access to Twitter and stats and everything and has been fully immersed in the FPL community and world. And that's Natalie, whose wildcard team you're seeing up on screen. And Mark's apprentice, Henry, has had nothing. So no help from us, no tools, no stats. He's purely relying on watching football matches and making opinions based on that. Neither have played FPL before, so it seems like a fair experiment to do. Both have started the season okay. I think they're about 5 or 6 points
I've got the leagues here. So so Natalie is 16 behind me and 15 behind you, and Henry's 5 behind us. 5 or 6 behind us, so not a lot in it at all.
Yeah, so not much in it at this stage. Natalie's wildcard on the screen is Sanchez and Steele, Duffy, Trent, Christensen, Cancelo, Livramento, Sarr, Gilmore, Salah, Mount, Traore, Calvert-Lewin, Ronaldo, and Antonio. So she was toying with the idea of wildcarding and has pulled the trigger. It's kind of, I like it. I think I like it. I like, obviously I like Ronaldo, Cavani and Antonio up front. The midfield's interesting. I mean, Salah's there and then Mount, Traore and Sarr. That's quite a differential sort of midfield. There's no Greenwood there, there's no Rafinha, there's no Jota, no Torres. These are all guys who I'm seeing in the majority of things. No Ben as well. So she's very much driven by stats. So she likes the look of Traore from all the underlying numbers. And yeah, obviously see something with Sarr on the fixtures and stuff. And then defence, spent quite a bit in defence really. Trent, Cancelo and Christensen. Obviously he's earmarked Christensen as being a bit of a steal at 5 million. I like it. I think it's a good team. What do you reckon? No Pascal Gross though.
No, they've gone, and Che Adams as well. But I think Twitter's had an influence here with the front three, right? With Calvert-Lewin and Antonio around Ronaldo. I think that she's been clever with Christensen and Mount because obviously she hasn't got Lukaku, but she's going to go in. Even if she keeps Ronaldo, she's going to have some attacking asset in terms of Mount from game week 7 onwards, and she's got the defender. I mean, obviously the weakness is the 2 4 million defenders in Duffy and Livramento, but Livramento's in that Southampton team to stay. I like it, and she can twist on Sarr and Traore, I guess, with one 5.5 and upgrade the other to a 6.5 with transfers if she wants to. But I think Sarr and Traore are probably the strongest assets at that price.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Fixtures, some degree of form. I really like it, actually. The more I look at it, I think she's done a good job. I
like Christensen as well in a 3, because I think at 5 million, he's maybe being overlooked because he is really cheap. And I mean, his competition is what, Thiago Silva, but I'd still expect Christensen to play. And he's probably not going to come on as well. So with the likes of Livramento there, I think you've got that at least covered. I mean, a bit, feels a bit weird saying that about a 4 million defender, but yeah, I think he's got enough about him, I've seen, attacking wise, to maybe get you something if Christensen doesn't play. But I think Christensen definitely plays these harder games because I think he's in the first 11 at the moment.
Well, and Silva could play the Champions League, right? He's experienced there, and therefore Christensen's in for the league.
They haven't got too many options at centre back, and they play with 3 of them. So
yeah, and if James is going to, I guess we don't know if James is going to be wing back full time, but we'd hope that would be the case because I mean that's the only reason why. I mean, James for me could be such an outstanding asset if he stays there. Yeah, that's where I want to go, and I think he is worth 0.5 more than Christensen by quite a way. I mean, I'd probably pay $1 million more. So I think that's the only reason why I wouldn't look at Christensen, because of the potential for attacking output.
There are some rumours of an injury to Stones.
Yeah, I saw that in chat today as well.
And Laporte at 5.5 could be a bit of a bargain as well. Yeah,
or maybe that will get through on Twitter to Natalie and she changes that up. And then she can go James. We'll see. Still a couple of days to go. So it is interesting. Henry's also played his wildcard. And this is what he's looking at the moment. Forgive me for the different type of screenshot. He sent me this from his mobile. Hot off the press, this is. I didn't know he was playing his wild card.
Whoa.
No, exactly. And it is quite different. And look at his cheap defence.
Whoa.
Yeah. So he has gone, I think the reason why he's got for the, 4 million defenders? And he's carrying Son in there as well as Salah, Ronaldo. And he's got the Mount link as well. So they've both gone Mount, which is interesting because as a player we've touched on, there's definitely a swell of support for him, it seems. But I think he's got changes to make here.
That looks like a team that I'd want to wildcard.
I knew you'd say that. It's interesting, isn't it? And then maybe this is where the gulf is going to be shown, in that obviously Natalie's wildcarding with all the tools and with Twitter, whereas Henry doesn't have any of that. And maybe this is it. Like, don't forget, we're 3 games in now, right? So whereas Natalie can go and look at data and on those 3 games and that inform her decisions, she's actually got something. I mean, she only, at the start of the season, she only had last season's data. Now she's week by week getting more. That's going to feed her decisions more and guide her in a good way, you'd think. You'd hope, right? If there's anything in data driving FPL decisions, you'd think that Natalie's advantage there will grow. And so what we're seeing here from Henry is a team which has no input from data whatsoever, which is, I think, why he's not even using the fixture ticker either. So he's not picking stuff up on that either. And Natalie's got that advantage. So that's interesting. It seems like something like the wild card, and perhaps I imagine the chips, that is when the kind of informed FPL manager starts to have that advantage.
The thing is, the front seven is strong, right? Like Fornals has started the season really well. If Son's fit, like we know he's always capable of getting a haul. We talked about Mount, Tony. Has only got one goal, but it's not a team that like I would ridicule if someone had it, but it isn't a team that I'd wildcard into, if that makes sense. I don't think if I had that team, I think I was being a bit harsh. I think if I had that team, maybe I wouldn't be advising the wildcard to get out of it. The trouble is, it's just the flexibility, isn't it? Like when you've got Williams, Amity, Basuma, Livramento, and Eiling, it's going to be so hard to move away from that defence. If Livramento was like a 5 million defender, for example, I'd be a bit more like, okay, there's things you can do here. You've obviously got, but the fact that defence is so light worries me a bit.
Yeah. So just for the podcast, it's Raya, Trent, Livramento, Ayling, Fornals, Salah, Mount, Son, Ronaldo, Antonio, Tony, and then on the bench, Sanchez, Basuma, Williams, and Amati. I think the move is Son out, right, to probably, a 7-5 or even below that midfielder, and then put that spend in defence.
I'd be tempted to do Sanchez to a 4 million goalkeeper, or Raya, one of them, and upgrade Eiling to Semedo or Tierney. And then your only real weakness then is you've got to play one of Livramento or Williams every week, but then the rest of your team hopefully makes up for it.
Fornals is an interesting pick, isn't it? That is purely an eye test pick, because that's all that Henry's going on. And the fact he's returned every week. So all he's using there is his points so far and what he's seen.
Well, and probably the fact he can't afford Benrahma anymore, because Fornals is 6, is he? Yeah, Fornals is 6. Yeah. So he probably wants Benrahma, but can't afford him because of the price rises.
Yeah. Well, this is where I expect the two teams to go apart and for Natalie to overtake Henry, but we'll see. That's what we expect to see. Just a few things to round up on. Do you want to mention the Green Arrow charity again? Do you want to draw attention to that? Because we should bring it up on screen.
Yep. So Mark and I both got red arrows this week, so we don't have to. Honestly, it makes my red arrows so much worse.
I told you not to do this.
You were right. But yeah, the FPL challenge is something Mark and I are going to talk about every week. It's just every time we get a green arrow, we're both going to donate to this charity. And if you want to get involved in it, then you can. There's a link in the description. We donate £5 each every time we get a green arrow. You can donate as little as 65p every time your FPL team gets a green arrow. And that money goes to feeding starving people around the world. So very nice.
And as you'll be donating 20 quid more when Ronaldo doesn't score as many points as Lukaku.
Absolutely. Yeah, we could donate to this charity as well and keep that going here. Yeah, although I don't think I'm going to be donating anything.
I think you will.
But yeah, sharethemeal.org if you're listening on podcast version, you want to get involved. Worth doing.
Also, the community tournament on Scout. Greyheads community tournament. Let's give that a plug, because that's going to take off in a big way next week, isn't it?
Absolutely. So anyone not aware, Fantasy Football Scout run these community tournaments sort of most years, run by a really talented group of people who are amazing at Excel, and people get involved and put their teams in. There's huge squads of like actual FPL managers who get involved. And I think there's 150 managers who are like involved in this community tournament. It's absolutely massive. And behind the scenes, there's like managers who are picking, other people to join their squads. And Mark and I on BlackBox have got the rights to talking about the snake draft that's going to happen. So some of the most sort of prominent names in the community, and Mark and I are involved in this big pool of what they call MVPs. And there's basically a draft where all the people who are involved in the tournament are going to be picking 2 of those managers for their own squads. And the snake draft works. The people with the most points, so the manager with the most points, get to pick first. So if you join us next week on the Q&A that we'll be doing, you'll be able to see who gets picked first out of Mark and I, which will be interesting. And we'll be competing against the likes of Magnus Carlsen, Let's Talk FPL, Late Riser, all these guys are all class MVPs.
Big names in the community. And it's going to be a bit of a grudge match edition for us, isn't it? We'll see whose team we end up in, and it's a knockout as well. So it goes in a league format.
So
it'll be a lot of fun. We might do. It could happen, right? And that would be nice, wouldn't it? It'd
be lovely.
It'd be less fun, wouldn't it? And just finally, let's mention the FCA Awards, because we haven't really done a very good job plugging this. It's been launched a few weeks ago, and we got nominated for a couple, didn't we? We got nominated for the best in fantasy football video and podcast, right?
We did indeed. Yep. which is great. So thanks for nominating us, whoever did. I think we've maybe avoided talking about it because we don't want to talk about it and then lose.
No, we want to look like we don't care. Like we
exactly.
don't, little trinkets. Who matters?
We're
they
playing
don't matter,
it
do
nonchalantly.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the same time,
but behind the scenes, we were like, we must win.
We've got to plug this.
Yeah,
so yeah, if you want to help us out and vote, then you can just go to footballcontentawards.com/voting. Or you can just tweet saying I'm voting for @FPL BlackBox in the @the_FCAs for #best in fantasy football. And if you like Andy's videos more than ours, then you can vote for him for video and you can vote us for podcast.
Yeah.
So, you can have the best of both worlds. But yeah, we really appreciate all your support as always. And this is a way, you can support us.
And the other way is smash and like.
Absolutely. So we are at 19.1 thousand subscribers. When we get to 20,000 and Mark's little cash register noise goes off, we will don our suits and we will be doing that podcast in the suit. I mean, the great thing is Mark was so stressed before this podcast that the thought of like trying to get you into a suit as well, and then we have technical issues, is going to be an absolute disaster.
Yeah.
So it's worth it. It's worth it just for that.
It will be. And I've got my suit ready, though. So that purchase, I bought one for the wedding a few weeks back. And so I've got that one.
Mean you bought one for BlackBox, you used it at the wedding?
No, don't tell Pip that. I haven't got a tie, though, so I've got to purchase a tie. I had to borrow a tie for the wedding. That's how bad it got. So I'm going to have to purchase a brand new tie. Try and get a football-themed tie in time. But we've got a few weeks yet. Hopefully, by the next international break, we might be very close.
Yeah.
So let's see. We might have to do another match of the day challenge to boost up the subs, but we'll see.
Yeah. So if you're listening on the podcast and you think what the hell are they talking about? I can't even see them. If you go onto YouTube and type in FPL BlackBox, we obviously do this live and you can see us. So feel free to join us if you want. But also, even if you do, just come and sub to the podcast. We kind of judge mostly kind of our successes on YouTube because that's our kind of like primary platform. So yeah, by subscribing and liking and commenting on the stuff, you push us up the algorithm. More people watch. We do more content. Everyone wins, ideally.
But still vote for us for best podcast as well. Don't even though we favour video. Right. Just get that clear. Right. I think that's it. So yes, as you may have told, less preparation went into this episode than last week, but then an awful lot went into last week. So I think that's fair enough. We will balance it out. Next week we will do a live Q&A after the show, and in that we will plug the community tournament more. We'll see where we came out in that. And we will have some data on Ronaldo and we'll have an eye test on Ronaldo. So I think it's going to be an interesting show because I'm either going to look very, very silly or I'll be sitting here looking very smug. That wouldn't be the first time, would it?
What's either?
No, that's true.
Mr. -4 to take Torres out. Don't get smug now.
Stop it now. Go over that. It's a good night for me, very much so. Good night.
Good night, everyone.